set it off. You living boring, I'm gonna set it off. Shooting, I'm scoring, I'm gonna set it off. Like soldiers torn, I'm gonna set it off. Son of God, no, I am not son of man. Blessings keep falling, the fingers keep coming in. I got you, but just know I'm texting like Uncle Sam. Left to the bank, you know that I'm coming in. We don't do it for the bands though, we don't do it for the clout. Legacy on the line, so I'm moving in and out. Seen good ones turn top dog, greedy ones get knocked off. I keep looking at the bench like I could never not ball. Coach keep me in the game, Curry deadly with the range. I keep looking in the mirror like, who is he? I'm insane. Who am I? He insane. Guess I am the one to blame. What's done is done, won't change. Time to live up to my name. Real will be real, fake gon' fall. Took time with this here, I'm made for a while. No sleep in the while, I won't fall. No sleep in the while, I want it all. I keep God first. I see evil, when I converse. Now today say, this how God works. Play my position, what is given with no concerns. Set it off. Top of the morning, I'm gonna set it off. You living boring, I'm gonna set it off. Shooting, I'm scoring, I'm gonna set it off. Like soldiers torn, I'm gonna set it off. Told my baby, meet me at the bank. Told my mama, I'ma break the trend. Locked in, I'ma change the weight. Working for my baby's kids. Hard times couldn't make the rent. Working hard, couldn't save a cent. Lonely nights, just me and God. Swear to him, always made the ends. Grab a paper, see the news. Hate coming by the tools. Walk a mile in my shoes. Something you can never do. Got my back against the wall. Bet I always pull through. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Sending shots, I block 'em. Superman with the moves. Rock 'em, sock 'em, drop pop 'em. Play to win, never lose. Run it up, I top 'em. Play for belly too. I hip hop or pop 'em. Anything I could do. Real will be real, fake gon' fall. Took time with this here, I'm made for a while. No sleep in the while, I won't fall. No sleep in the while, I want it all. I keep God first. I see evil, when I converse. Now today say, this how God works. Play my position, what is given with no concerns. Set it off. Top of the morning, I'm gonna set it off. You living boring, I'm gonna set it off. Shooting, I'm scoring, I'm gonna set it off. Like soldiers torn, I'm gonna set it off.
Like you hurt me too, me too. We're letting go, ripping apart. We're letting go, ripping apart. I can hurt you like you hurt me too, me too. We're letting go, ripping apart. We're letting go, ripping apart. We're letting go,
if we're gonna be able to. Oh, no. Paco?
Yeah.
Okay. Bula.
Hey, we're on.
We are on. We're on, everybody.
Instagram doesn't like the connection.
Okay.
Dude, I bought it, so we have to use it. Or you save it for tomorrow. Huh? 3 bags, huh? Allen's. Yeah. We're good?
So we're good for
Yeah, we're good. We're good. We're going to be going. Welcome, everybody. We're going to be going fishing tomorrow.
Hey, that's a good deal.
I know. This is my friend Dave.
Hey,
Thanks for
John,
coming
it's
on.
awesome to be here.
Yeah. This is the most informal interview that you'll ever do.
I doubt
And
that.
it's not an interview at all. It's just hanging out. And so what I wanted to show you guys was, not show you guys, but I just wanted to have on a guy who loves Jesus, who is a positive influence in my life, and yeah, has a awesome impact on the community that we live in. And I appreciate what you guys do.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Yeah.
That means a lot.
Yeah, you guys impact the people that are in our circle, and that matters a lot.
Yeah.
It's crazy that we've come like we met at a barber in town.
I think Ryan was
Oh,
our son.
that's right.
Ryan,
Yeah,
our son Ryan was going through, and your wife's inability to let anybody with white skin pass without actually interviewing them. I think that's what made the difference.
So true.
Like she had to corner him about
Shout out
where.
Steph.
Yeah, who are you? You
Yeah.
know, did something like that, and I think from there she, I think we got connected, and
Well, because Lambasa, we live in Fiji, for those of you guys who don't know, in northern Fiji. So it's not like there's very highly populated area, but it's just not the most common town to see white-skinned folks.
No,
I
I
guess.
think-
And like if you see somebody who's light-skinned, you're like,
yeah.
what are you eating?
Yeah, I feel like we're like grains of white rice in a bowl of brown.
So
we
true.
sort of stand out. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, not yesterday, a few days ago when I was in Lambasa, I saw, like, you just know, there was a group of white people, or like a family, and you're just like, oh, you're tourists.
Yeah, and
You just know it right
that's-
away.
And I always like skin check them, and it's like, hey, at least I'm not like that white.
Yeah.
You know,
So
I
true.
think that's because it's like they glow. They're almost like a pink radiance that
And
it goes from them.
Instagram is not, sorry guys, I'm not actually texting here, I'm just looking at my phone. Come on. Let's go, baby. I'm always, like, I feel bad for people who come to Lambasa, like, that are tourists.
Yeah.
And you're like, who sold you on coming to this town, you know? Yeah.
I know there's people working on it, but yeah, it is definitely.
Like, there's definitely, like, I mean, there's hotels, and, like,
Yeah.
if you got a hotel in Bati, you do
Yeah, if
more
you're
than
into-
I do for tourism. Like, I'm not bad-mouthing the tourism attractions or whatever that are here.
But if you're into dust, like Lambasa is like one of the top places in the world. It's awesome for dust.
For dust,
Yeah.
yes. For dust, and mostly the dust is caused by the 3 guys that are cleaning the drains or the sides of the road. Like,
That's right.
man, that has got to be one of the worst jobs.
I think what's really cool in Lambasa is like these little trends that catch on. When we first came here, like I don't know how many years ago, there was like cars that had ski racks on them. It was like there was a couple like Toyotas or something like that, and they had like aftermarket ski racks on board.
You see the
and-
Prius with the
yeah,
ski
yeah,
rack?
yeah. And it was like, what? This makes no sense whatsoever. So
I still don't understand the ski rack.
I don't either.
I will say our friend who is a taxi driver in Nandi, Ali. So if you guys need a taxi driver in Nandi, make sure you hit up Ali. Definitely the most trustworthy guy. This podcast is sponsored by Ali now. We were just talking before. Like, we don't actually have a sponsor for this live, so
Somebody's got to dig up his phone number.
yeah,
here real quick.
exactly. Yeah, I know. So Ali, he has a ski rack, what we call a ski rack. I guess you just call it like a roof basket or something in Fiji. I don't know, but we've used it before when we like packed out his car going to the airport.
Yeah.
Suitcases, bungee cords on top. I'm like, hey,
I know.
you're probably the only guy in Fiji that's ever used this thing, which is not true, but I think they just carry spare tires more than anything.
I think so. I'm not sure.
Like that's about the only thing I ever see them. So if you're coming to Fiji, make sure you come to Lambasa. The tourism is booming. the reefs and the nightlife is
It's all
ridiculous.
It's through the roof.
Whenever I go to Mombasa at night, I'm always like, I it's probably twice a year.
Yeah, someone would
Here,
have to
maybe-
explain that. I've never been to. This is the appropriate thing for a pastor to say, but I've never been to any of the clubs or anything. So that's a really good sign. So I have no idea what sort of
Wink,
chaos.
wink. Yeah.
Yeah, but I know the times I've driven through later at night, and it's just like you see somebody drunk and stumbling out. It's like, man, this has got to be. This is like a fist fight waiting to happen.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fights, eh, Dewey? In club, is there?
Yeah. Here in Honolulu, in Lambasa.
Oh, Lambasa.
Plenty.
All the
Yeah.
misguided testosterone
His
coming out
cousin,
of
his
that.
cousin.
Oh yeah. Well, everybody is Tui's
His
cousin.
cousin got jealous. And got referred talking to his wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he just came up and punched him.
Oh, man.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Maybe I'm on the wrong internet connection here. Oh, that's why, Tui. It's on yours.
Oh.
Stupid. Stupid.
Everything's going slow.
Oh, is mine off? Can you go run into my room, make sure my Wi-Fi is plugged in?
Right.
Okay. Sorry, I'm making you run like this. You just open that door, and then just see if it's. Oh, it is on. Here, I spoke to it.
He's spoken into existence.
Yeah, spoken into existence. I apologize to everybody on Instagram Live that this is probably just not going to work, but whatever. So, we met through my talkative wife.
Yep.
Talking to your talkative son. Is he talkative?
Yeah, he's pretty open. He's
Like he
pretty-
was definitely
yeah.
approachable.
Yeah, I mean he's a big guy, so yeah, he's
He is a
pretty
big dude,
easy to
actually.
come. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a pretty good size.
Yeah.
Pretty good
And
size
so
guy.
when he was here, it was COVID, right?
Yeah.
Didn't he get stuck here? Or
Yeah, he
something?
came here at the day before COVID, all the shutdowns and everything happened,
Yeah.
and then he ended up getting stuck here and staying like from March to July.
Crazy.
And yeah, it was a rough situation.
Yeah.
But, I mean the gang from Nukumbati.
That's
took
like
him
his
in,
hot
yeah.
season for
Oh yeah,
like what he does.
Oh, yeah.
He's a fly fishing
Yep.
guide in.
North Idaho in Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the United States.
We can't talk about fly fishing right now. I'm gonna get angry. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, yeah, I know.
But so he was working at Nukumbati, and I think that's around the time when we got introduced to everybody
Yep.
at Nukumbati.
Yeah. Yep.
Everything gonna happen at one time actually when it comes to like relationships.
Yeah,
For us, at least.
Yeah, I think I think at that time we were just super insulated, and
yeah.
isolated.
Yeah.
Because all of us were stuck here on Vanuatu. There was nowhere to go. I think we just really had to lean into the relationships that were around us at that time. It was really, it was a pretty intense time for everybody.
Yeah, and you guys were not in the place where you are
No,
now. Like
no.
so, Dave and Tina recently built a nice little house for themselves. By the grace of God.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
I mean, like,
Absolutely.
just like us, it's nothing over the top or anything. It's just kind of what you need
Yeah.
for you and Tina.
Yeah, I forget how many square feet. I think it's like 600 and some square feet.
Yeah, yeah.
It looks a lot bigger when you're standing kind of in front of it because it's sort of long.
That's what Chris said.
Yeah, he's
He
like,
just
man,
said
that house is huge.
Yeah, he's like,
and then you
"Man."
walk into it and it's like, there's
Oh.
nothing here.
But it works for you guys.
Yeah, it works perfect for us. But as soon as Ryan visits, because of how big he is, it's like all of a sudden it's like a dollhouse. We're thinking about what do we need to do to make some room for him to come and spend a little time with us. So,
Right?
Yeah.
AKA build another house in the back.
Well, just
maybe.
something. Yeah, like a little 1-bedroom, little shack or something.
Yeah.
Something simple.
What brought you guys to Fiji then? In the
That's
beginning.
That's a big story. You ready for that?
I am ready for that.
Okay, so
everybody needs to know why the Allens came to Fiji.
Yeah, I think we had it's like a multifaceted story that really starts with probably a few years back. My son Justin. This is kind of the beginning of it. Is we
Yeah,
had
let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because like I think I know your story.
Yeah.
And I don't want to just like this is a word that's maybe gonna be harsh, but I don't want to like just like prostitute out your story
Yeah.
just because it's like a good story or like
Yeah.
a story that really impacts just for the sake of like
Yeah.
that. But I feel like that is like a huge part of
Yeah.
what's going on now. Are you even
Absolutely.
sitting on this mat
Yeah.
with us?
Yeah, that's a huge thing. So, not for me right now. Thank you.
Bula Dave.
Absolutely, these
And
guys.
Bula everybody. Thank you guys for joining. if you are joining on the live and the podcast, Bula. So you're in the Navy.
Man, yeah. So we ended up living in
back.
Idaho.
Yeah.
We could choose anywhere in the country when I get out of the Navy. We end up living in Idaho. We stay there for, till, this is in 2010. And I had been, we'd been attending a church in Idaho, Real Life Ministries. We started going.
That's the name of the church.
Yeah. That's the, I'm repping them.
Oh, sweet.
We started attending the church when it opened. Like there was like a couple hundred people, and the church has ended up growing to like over 8,000 people since then. It's crazy.
Smokes.
But
How many people on a service, or like how many services on a Sunday? They're multiple?
They do, I think, 1 or 2 services on a Thursday night, and then they do 3 services on Sunday. They've got 4 different campuses like in the area. And then I don't know how many church plants they have, like 6 or 7 church plants. They're growing. It's a
And have they
testament to-
systematized, not to go off on a tangent, have they been able to systematize a bit what they've done to like so other people can replicate it?
A little bit.
Yeah,
you see a little bit through Tina and I.
Yeah, for
of
sure.
That,
Yeah,
of
definitely.
like developing, and it's about relationships, developing small groups, and
Sorry, I have to
and,
do the
and
passcode.
yeah, and they and so that's sort of the system. It's built on like intentional relationships, and it's really modeled after Jesus's method for discipleship. And so they, if there's somebody interested in planting a church somewhere, they express that interest, and if they're able to go and develop groups, and the groups expand and grow, multiply, then they assess the value of planting a church in that place. And then if it's if there's growth, if they're reaching people, if people's lives are changed, it's really about fruit. Then you see that's where a church will be planted. So from Idaho to Texas to Montana and a bunch of different places around the country.
All the good states,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. All that, yeah. It's
We'll get into that later.
yeah. So Tina and I, we'd moved to Idaho. We started attending Real Life when it first started. We got involved. Our boys were young. We have 2 sons, Ryan and Justin. They were in youth group and everything. We were volunteering in youth group, but at the same time, I was a woodworker. That was my profession, and then on the side, both of the boys got involved in youth wrestling.
Did you get into woodworking because? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Did you get into woodworking because it was a hobby, or like a lot of people, we turn our hobbies into work, and then we end up usually not liking our hobby anymore because we have to do it for work.
Yeah.
Was that how it worked for you with woodworking?
It was always like so I was an electronics technician in the Navy, and in the Navy's wisdom, I got sent to a shore maintenance facility to do electronics, and they didn't have a job for me, so they put me in the woodworking shop. Actually, it was in plant maintenance because they figured, okay, you're an advanced electronics technician, you work on computers, you must know how to install industrial wiring and plant electronics. That's the
Yes,
Navy
sir.
at its very best,
really?
right? Yeah, that's absolutely how it works.
Now, is that back in the day Navy, or
Yeah.
do you think that's now Navy?
I think it has been since the beginning of time.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, that's
I think
funny.
probably, in the ancient Greeks, they misassigned people, and and that's how the military worked from
That's
the
so
beginning.
funny.
So the
Electronics technician now becomes woodworker.
yeah, and so I volunteered to work in this woodworking shop. I picked up a Fine Woodworking magazine, found a guy in Hawaii where we were stationed that was doing it professionally at a high level, and I would work for him evenings and Saturdays, and then during the day I would take whatever I learned from him and apply it in the Navy shop.
Oh,
And
okay.
then also the shop that I was in did boat work, repaired like admirals' barges, captains' barges, and things like that. It was really cool.
But that wouldn't be woodworking.
There
I
was
guess
a lot of
interior.
wood.
Interior, yeah, you're right.
So we
Yeah,
did a lot
sure.
of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so then that was my profession till 2015. So working at
That's not long ago.
no,
That's
no.
less than 10 years ago.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I started doing that in 89
Yeah.
to 2015. So
Wow.
yeah, it was in the shop that I ended up working for in Idaho was like a high level, and we would call it architectural millwork or architectural joinery. And that's
Awesome
what I did.
tooling.
Yeah.
Cool tools.
Yeah. I was totally spoiled. But to answer your question, it's like that sort of ruined me. I sort of started out like super enthusiastic about the art side of it.
Right.
But then you have to support your family. And so the next, from 92 to 2015, it's industrial woodworking and it's about, you end up in the business of selling and not buying.
Yeah, right.
Right.
What was your favorite project that you think you did? I mean, that might be a hard question to answer. Well, like one of the things you're most proud of. Okay, because I have a friend who does kind of similar high-end woodworking in Canada.
Yeah.
And the thing that he seemed the most proud of was this like staircase that was spiral and had a slide on the side.
Yeah.
And it was like they had to glue and sand. It was just multiple pieces. Like insane spiral wooden staircase thing.
I think probably the thing I was most proud of was probably my wife's kitchen.
Oh,
You know, when
in the house you sold.
Yeah, in the house we sold. Yeah,
so painful.
I know this might put her into tears at home, so we'll see how it goes. And the swords I built for your boys the other day, I was pretty proud of those. Yeah,
those are still here.
yeah, good.
Yeah.
I was waiting to see if they had bloody knuckles or not, because that's usually a result of.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Dad,
Yes, buddy.
can we go chase a cow?
On the horse?
Yeah.
Do you have a
Wait.
rope?
You're not allowed to run. You're not allowed to chase.
But-
You're not allowed to chase cows on the horse.
You're gonna go by the
'Cause-
cruiser.
Hey,
You're going in the cruiser. Or you're going on the horse.
cruiser. Then
No,
I'll
it's
get
good,
Oh,
it's
okay.
good,
Go,
it's good,
go
it's
then.
good, it's good.
Go. Don't ride a horse and chase cows, please.
You've got to get them a lariat.
Yeah. What is that? A lariat.
The good roping.
Oh yeah.
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 Yeah, man.
I just like I don't mind them riding.
Yeah.
But I don't like them chasing other animals. Yeah. Because like you're just yanking on it because the cow turned left, and you're like, oh, I have to turn
Yeah,
left.
they don't
And I
have the thing to tie the rope to.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's not going to go well. There's going to be a broken arm.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And that's not what I need while
No.
Steph is away. No. Oh my gosh, dude. She'll murder me.
I don't necessarily.
Yeah.
believe-
No, yeah.
but we'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not what I
So
need right now.
I got out of, I was a woodworker for that years. I was super proud of Tina's Kitchen. There was a bunch of doors we made, a bunch of things like that were high. I mean, it was like, I was more proud of like figuring things out, how to do things, than I was like the
okay.
end product.
Right. Right.
And that
Finding
was
a
always
solution.
a challenge, yeah. Because
Yeah.
we would do some crazy stuff that was really risky, and doing moldings and things like that were just nobody else could do, and so it was just really cool. I really enjoyed the work, and then on the side, both the boys ended up going into wrestling. I think Justin was 5, Ryan was 7, and so then I would spend a lot of time as a volunteer wrestling coach, and then it ended up at junior high, which would be like I coached kids from like 11, 12, 13 in school.
Yeah, so that'd be like end of primary school kind of age.
Yeah,
last year
just
of primary
before they
school.
would go into secondary
Yeah,
school.
right. Yeah.
And so I did that for a bunch of years, ran clubs.
Is this like practice every night,
Yeah.
wrestling?
Oh, yeah. And then high school, once the boys got into high school, I started helping with the high school. And so
Really?
then I was helping with the high school. And
So how many kids in a high school wrestling? I mean, obviously it depends on the size of your school,
Yeah.
but how many was there in that?
there was probably like 40 kids.
Really?
Yeah, 40 to 50 kids.
Every night?
Every night.
How many coaches then
So
would that
there's
take?
probably 5 or 6 coaches.
Holy
and
smokes.
so... Like,
So is Idaho known for the wrestling pedigree? Big time,
some
or-
places.
Okay.
It's a tough state.
Yeah.
I would say like Pennsylvania, Iowa, California, New Jersey. It's growing. It's a tough. It's a sport like tough people, tough
yeah.
kids. It's a really tough sport.
I'm a big fan of the UFC.
Yeah.
I love
Yep.
mixed martial arts.
Yep.
I did a couple years, or maybe that's an exaggeration, a year or so of jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
And just fell in love with it. And then
Yeah.
we moved to Fiji, and
Yep.
obviously there's nothing here
Yeah.
for that. But like one thing that I learned very quickly in jiu-jitsu was like somebody who had a wrestling base or background,
Yeah.
they kind of controlled
Yeah.
everything. Like especially in martial arts where you start on the feet.
Yeah.
Like if you have a stand-up artist versus say a wrestler, like the wrestler is going to be the one who's going to take the thing to the
Yeah,
ground.
yeah.
And so whether you're good at jiu-jitsu or you're good at like kickboxing or Muay Thai, it's like wrestling is like, I feel like the one thing
Yeah.
that I would want my kids to have like a base in more than the other stuff.
Yeah. It's
But
like
I don't know. Yeah.
when the
Like
guys.
jiu-jitsu is great, but it only works once you're on the ground.
Right. And
pretty
that's where,
much,
like Koroy was talking about getting into bar fights. I never
he's
did
every week.
But Koroy, that's what he does for fun. But
Bouncer.
like the wrestlers would take people down and things would go bad.
Yeah,
right?
and that's
And so it's
Curb
you saw
stompings.
the cauliflower ear or something else, then you don't mess with these guys.
yeah.
And it's even more so now that MMA is really taken off. And so
So so you're a high school.
Yep.
You went to high school wrestling.
So I didn't wrestle. I was,
sorry, coach.
But my boys both
Yeah.
did, and then I ended up picking up, in my 30s and 40s, and learning how, just becoming a coach, and so.
Did you ever get paid for that?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so
yeah.
it actually turned into like something you
Yeah,
were
it
getting
turned into
a
like
bit of money?
I was a junior high wrestling coach.
Oh.
I was the head coach for Canfield Middle School, and there was times when we had just like a pack of kids. I know there was 60 kids just going at it, and it was so cool.
Chaos.
I love junior high wrestling. It's like the best thing ever. You think about someone like Aliki, he's a little boy, right?
Yeah.
And so you would get these little boys, and they would, in that age group, they're turning from little boys to men.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Seriously, and you see it happening. It's like kids come in playing Legos, and they leave like chasing girls. And
Wow.
the voice changing, the
Nuts.
whole thing.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to convince these kids who are like super self-conscious and everything that putting on a singlet, like spandex
Yeah,
singlet,
yeah.
and going out and getting into a
Ooh,
fight in
that's the
front
thing.
of all their friends is like the most important thing in the
Because
world.
jiu-jitsu, you put on like a robe.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
if you're a big,
Yeah.
fat person
Yeah.
or whatever, it doesn't really,
Yeah.
kind of hides you.
Well,
Like, everybody
even
kind of
if
looks the same in
like
a gi.
the worst case scenario is like how I was built as a kid, is just a little husky, a little roundy,
Yeah,
and
trust me, I know what you're talking
and
about.
voluptuous.
Troy
I
saw a
think.
picture of me the other day. He's like, Maggie, imagine if you look like that still. I'm like, yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
I think about it every day.
And so it's like
Yeah.
if you can convince a kid like that it's like this is the best thing ever, is that we're going to do that, suit you up in that, and then we're going to throw you into the middle of the mat, shake hands with somebody, and you're going to get in a fight. Right. And,
Yeah.
and
That's crazy.
And I loved getting kids to believe that was the best thing ever.
Well,
And it was so much fun.
do you think that bled into, we're going to fast forward a little bit, did that bleed into your ministry
Absolutely.
life at all?
Yeah, 100%.
That's cool.
100%.
Yeah.
It's like I think I'm happiest when I'm coaching, when I'm encouraging people to do things that they feel are uncomfortable. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Like to push into the uncomfortable, to push into, and there's also like I lean heavily into like the mental toughness part of it that comes from that came from wrestling, from coaching wrestling, and making people believe that learning how to set goals. I think is one of the most I was really fortunate to be around. Ryan ended up being a college wrestler. Our other son Justin, he just didn't have that thing that pushed him into the next level.
Yeah.
But we were around a bunch of boys that ended up wrestling at the university level, and
Whoa.
one is even a head coach of a university in Utah right now. And I was just around them, and you see that like total focus, the ability to set
It's
goals.
different too. Wrestling, like
It's
cutting
a-
weight alone,
Yeah.
cutting weight alone, like okay, rugby athletes, all right, football athletes, baseball, hockey, lacrosse, whatever. But like wrestling is so intense, just because if you want to play the game, you have to shed weight, and like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're maybe in
Yeah.
higher weight classes, but that's misery.
And
Mindset that.
It's like the whole idea of like 7 minutes. It's only 7 minutes. How hard can 7 minutes be, right?
Right.
And it's one thing, like you look at rugby sevens and they're running hard for 7 minutes and tackling and everything else, right?
Good comparison.
But
Go try it.
go try it. You try to not have your arms turned to rubber, your legs turned to rubber in the first 30 seconds that you're wrestling live, right?
Yeah.
And then you start to get in condition, and you realize how quickly you lose condition, how quickly you can gain condition, and when your body starts to learn to absorb injury and pain, right? Then
Who would have been the better wrestler if they had the same mindset, do you think?
of the two boys? Justin was a little more athletic.
Yeah.
Ryan had a lot tougher mentality.
Which is so cool. I mean, I asked that question because, like, it's actually not, for everybody who's listening, it's not actually about, there's a lot of people who aren't gifted at doing the things that they're really well known for.
Yeah.
It just comes from a mindset thing.
I think a lot of times the most athletic person doesn't always achieve the highest level. I think it's the person who has that work ethic,
for sure.
that the one that really embraces the grind, and will just do everything right. They'll organize their priorities to accomplish what they need to do, and and I think that carries over into ministry in a lot of ways. I think that's a whole nother conversation, but
Totally agree with you though.
But I think if you have the ability to set goals and set realistic goals, things that you can accomplish towards like your ultimate goal, it's like we would encourage every kid that came in, it's like, do you set a goal for like an Olympic gold medal? Like that should be your goal. Why shouldn't that be something that you want to accomplish?
Yeah.
But then you have to set achievable goals on the way in order to accomplish, so that it's like, today I'm going to get up and I'm going to run in the morning, right? Or I'm going to lift in the morning, or I'm going to do something in the morning because the other guy's not doing that, and I want to be better than
sure.
that other guy.
I even heard the reverse of that recently
Yeah.
from a guy who, I don't know how many months or years sober, but the reverse of it, I'm saying, like, from somebody who's trying to quit something
Yeah.
is like, he said, and I don't know if all people who have sobered up think about it this way, but he said, I don't think about it like, I need to make it another week or another year.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, I won't drink today.
I won't drink today.
I'm not going
Right.
to drink today. And then tomorrow,
Yeah.
I'm not going to drink today.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's just
Yeah.
every day, I'm just like, I'm choosing not today. Just not today.
Yeah,
And-
we have a great relationship with a recovery ministry in Idaho, and those guys, they hand out those coins. It's a Christ-focused recovery.
Coins.
Yeah, and so you get a coin for they set like markers, like it might be 1 year, 5 years, 10 years.
Got it.
But they also do coins for like, you've been sober a day, you've been sober a month, you've been sober, a week or whatever it is. It's like
Right,
and they celebrate it.
That's neat.
And it's called Celebrate Recovery, and they focus on
It's like an NBA ring for not doing drugs.
Yeah, and then there's forgiveness when you fail and you start over, right?
Right.
But then it's about celebrating like the little steps you take every day that you accomplish without drinking, without doing weed or whatever it is you're doing, pornography or whatever it is. It's like whatever your addiction. It's like every time you should celebrate every day that you're able to beat that. And of course we look at it through under the power of Jesus Christ, that you're changed and you're made new, and and that's one of the huge motivating factors is giving your life to the Lord in that.
Yeah, to overcome those things. Do you think that like daily, like not today or just today, that applies also, like you were saying, to athletics?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
I know. Just watching my son, watching Ryan, he, like I said, he took a beating, like from the time he was 7 till he was probably 15. Like he got really good at not being pinned. Right. It was like, that was the celebration sometimes. It's like, hey, you didn't get pinned, and that as a coach, that was something that I learned. It's like, you celebrate the little things. Like a kid goes out and he loses in like 5 seconds, right? Like you end up with this little kid who's just super soft, hasn't got a lick of hair on his body. And he goes out and he's wrestling, maybe he's 13 years old, and he runs into some guy who could start a family, right? And it's like growing a mustache and a beard at 13, and he just gets decimated in 5 seconds. And what are you going to say to a kid? He's like, at least he went out there, shook hands, got in position, and started wrestling, right? And you come off, and it's like, let's celebrate. Hey, good job. You went out there and you did something that nobody else here is doing.
Same
right?
thing with life.
Yeah.
Most people just won't do the thing they.
And if you
they
can
could do.
encourage that in somebody, and if you can get them like, okay, but here's the thing, you may have lost this, but we're going to get better every day. Right? And so tomorrow you're going to come to practice. And if you're really serious about this, if you get up in the morning and you go for a run, or you do some push-ups, or you do this other thing, and for us as Christians, it's like if you get up and you spend a little time in the Word, you spend some time with Jesus, and you grow a little bit every day. I mean, it's amazing what can happen and how you can change positively.
I love that actually, because there's a lot of pressure from people who are in ministry, whether it's missionaries or pastors, or when we say ministry, guys, we're talking about people who some part of their life is dedicated to seeing people come to know Jesus.
Yeah.
I guess is that fair?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. That's the hope.
Yeah, because like not everybody's in full-time ministry, and I believe that we're all in ministry actually.
Exactly.
And so like everybody
100%.
should, like, whether you're in the Navy, or whether you're a policeman, or you're a business owner,
Or you're TUI,
or you're creating content, or whatever you're doing. I looked at him and I'm like, I don't know what he does. I'm like, not jack of all trades. Yeah, but always like he has many job titles.
Whatever, if you're Koroi, which is
If
just
you're
enough.
Koroi, yeah.
That's a job title all by itself. What do you do? I'm Koroi. And everybody's like, man, that guy.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, do you that that mindset of like you have to spend a certain amount of time, like I was having a conversation with somebody recently, I guess I'll say, and they're like, look, we give a tenth of our money, we should also be giving a tenth of our time. And I think everybody goes through different convictions, and like if that's what you feel like is right for you at this moment, then like, hey, like God's put that on your heart, you should you should do that. Okay, so 24 hours in a day, so whatever, that's 1/10 of 24
Right,
hours.
right.
If that's what you feel like you should be doing.
2.4 hours
Yeah.
or whatever it is, right? Is
Yeah.
that right? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
2.4 hours. And that's a lot
Yeah.
of quiet time for somebody in doing devotions.
Yeah, I don't have that kind of attention.
Person who, hey, read the verse of the day, or like it's okay sometimes. Like I definitely challenge yourself, to do more.
Yeah.
But I guess a bit of growing every day is what matters.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just trying to say, like, there's just pressure sometimes that you have to, spend X amount of time or do X thing, and
Right.
you have to see these certain rewards or these certain things
yeah.
in your life. But it's like,
Yeah.
hey, just open the Bible. Heck, if you don't have a reading plan, just open the Bible to a chapter, read it, and just be like, hey, how does this apply to me in my life?
And that's what impacted me. So like my background is not from a Christian perspective. Even though my family grew up, I'm from northern Pennsylvania originally, and my family, I think they go all the way back to the 1700s in a particular part of Pennsylvania. Like the Allens were involved in building this church in this little town. On the other side of things, my mom's Italian.
I knew that.
But like my grandmother was a deacon in this Presbyterian church. Our name's involved in it a lot, but we didn't have any relationship with it whatsoever. I don't know what happened for my dad. Something caused him to not have a relationship with the pastor, and so we just never went to church at all. And
Christmas, Easter, no?
barely.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
If my grandmother if it was really important to her, we would go to church.
Grandma, okay.
And then it was like we'd have to get dressed up, and then we were having a conversation as a family one time. We were talking about an aunt of mine or a cousin, and she had been given her life to Christ, and she was born again. And the conversation, the way it was brought up at our table, was like, "That's crazy, right? That's craziness. That she's one of them nutty Christians that gets born again and stuff like that, right?" And so that's like, as a kid, that's what filters into my head for the until I'm in the Navy and I'm in the Persian Gulf, and Tina sends me a picture. I'm there for 10 months, and Tina sends me a picture shortly after I get there, and she's getting baptized, right? And she's living alone in Hawaii. I think she had Ryan, and Ryan's just like a couple months old.
And you're like 10 months to her, right? That's how long you're gone for?
Yeah,
It's
I'm
gonna
gone
be
10 months.
10
And so she sends me this picture of herself getting baptized, and I'm like, oh crap.
My wife found
Oh
Jesus.
man, I don't know what this is going to be like, but this is not going to be good. And so we get back, and just like we fumble through faith and trying to go to churches, and I'm trying to make her happy, and I don't really have any faith. I know that there's a God. I'm kind of like one of those guys that's like, I believe in God.
The concept of being,
right, and it was offensive to me if somebody didn't believe in God. And so then what drew me into beginning a relationship was like real guys in real, like, not these like picture perfect Ned Flanders-y sort of images of like Oakley dokley, and whatever, of this super committal to, oh, well, every day we do this devotional like this, and we read a chapter of whatever it is, Spurgeon and all the other stuff, right? And that, it was more like the real walk of people who are struggling to follow
Which is what you
Jesus.
found in Jim, right?
Yeah.
That's
So Jim was
right?
Jim, how I met Jim was like, we're at a wrestling camp. He was a wrestler for North Idaho College, and everybody, like, North Idaho College was a national championship college for junior colleges, and they had an incredible camp, summer camp. Our boys were invited down by this head coach, John Owen, who was a huge mentor to me. He didn't even really realize it. But he's like, bring the boys down for nothing. And they were about the same age as his kids. And so our kids would go down there, and they'd spend 3 weeks at this summer camp. And they're like 5 and 7, running around with high school kids. And and it's just like totally inappropriate. And somehow or another, they like survived, and we were just unaware. And so anyway, I met Jim there, and so then like he comes back around a little bit later, and he plants his church, and he's got his kids in our wrestling program,
Which is Real Life Ministries.
which is
Or-
no, it was the wrestling program was North Idaho
No,
College.
no, but the church you
yeah, the
planted,
church he planted.
it's crazy. And
Yeah.
now like
Yeah.
8,000 plus
Yeah,
multiple campuses.
And so we go to this wrestling tournament, and I'm coaching his kids, and he catches Tina, and he's like, "Hey, you should come to service." And she's like, "We will." And you could see it in her eyes. She was like
shoot.
super happy that I was like hooked.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there was like no way out because this friend of mine who's a wrestling coach is inviting me to the church he's pastoring, and so there was no dodging it.
So he was a cool pastor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Hey,
just a
was he,
guy.
is he a guy who's like, "Hi, my name's Dave. This is what I do." Was he like, "I'm a pastor"?
No,
Yeah,
no. He's like,
there's
I'm
a
Jim,
great- yeah.
and we knew each other from wrestling camp,
Yeah.
and from, and he was Jimmy to to the head coach, to John, and to all, he's always been Jim. He's not Pastor Jim to me. He's
Right.
Jim. And I get weirded out when people call him Pastor Jim. And even though he deserves the title.
You get weirded out then when people call you Pastor Dave?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's really strange for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like,
I'm sorry, I never called you
yeah,
Pastor Dave
I don't
before.
expect you to.
It's big in Fiji.
It's that war
Yeah.
between being set apart and everything else, and I understand, and there's a level of respect, and it's like around here, I still call people Tatala. When I go to the grocery store, I get hit up with Tatala, and
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I'm appreciative of where God has me, and I'm respectful of it, but ultimately, it's like I don't have any expectation that people refer to me by a title.
Sure,
So
yeah.
So anyway, Jim, he gets us to come to church, and then there's like a 16-year process.
16.
16 years
All right.
of me, like I volunteer to help with the high school ministry a little bit, and we're trying to we're doing it as our kids are going through, we're like volunteering, and then that's when like the heavy part of the story kind
Right.
of comes in. And Justin's involved in rugby, right? Our son, he'd wrestled all the way through high school. He's a tough dude. But
Wrestling
he-
is a great sport, or a great base
yeah.
for rugby,
Oh
by
yeah,
the way, guys.
yeah.
Like,
It's fantastic for it.
I can't-
It's one of those things I wish I could figure out how to get involved with like a rugby program but it's like it's very specific, like the things that cross over, and I'm still trying to figure out. Like England uses a wrestling coach as part of their part of their
it's-
training.
I mean, even for warm-ups, it's like I pummeled
yeah.
my whole life.
Yeah.
Or they're like, okay,
Yeah.
30 seconds of pummeling, and you're like, all right, pummeling. And then
Yeah.
like I went to jiu-jitsu, it's like, oh, okay, this is what they
makes
do.
sense.
And like,
and I can throw somebody on their head from this.
yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right,
exactly. We got to figure that out actually, because we talked about
Yeah,
doing
I think
like some sort of wrestling
we just
program
we
at
have
the
to
school.
talk. You have to kind of watch wrestling. So, it was funny because you said something about now the Olympics are over, and it's like over. They haven't even started. Like August 5th, the Olympics really start because that's
funny.
when wrestling starts.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Greco-Roman, women's freestyle, men's freestyle.
I got
Oh
such
my
big
gosh,
problems. We're gonna
yeah.
talk about the Olympics later if we have
We'll
time.
get to it,
But
yeah.
like, I mean, like, are we really gonna act like we care about horseback riding and swimming this much? Like once every 4 years, I'll talk about somebody jumping over a piece of wood with their horse, and you get a gold medal.
Rhythmic gymnastics. That's got me befuddled.
Oh, with it.
3-on-3 basketball. I that's not a rant I want to get on right now.
Is that in the Olympics?
Yeah.
Get out of
No,
here.
I'm serious. It's
Okay.
not as though like the privilege. Anyway, yeah.
Okay.
Let's not do that.
Oh my gosh, you're
So-
getting me fired up right now. So yeah. Oh, the heavy part of the story.
So Justin,
Yeah.
he's involved in rugby and
Yes.
he loves it, and so he ends up going down to Boise for so from Coeur d'Alene to Boise is like 7-hour trip. He takes our car, he goes down. On the way back, he's driving through this particular area. It's
a long drive for a young guy.
It's a long drive. He's got a bunch of his friends in there
Okay.
with him.
Yeah.
And he's driving out of this one area that's a little bit curvy. He hits some gravel, spins the car out, puts it into like a cliff, into the high side of the cliff on one side of the road, right? And I know where it happened. And when he tells us when it happened, he's 20 years old. And when he tells us what happened, it's like I picture the other side of the road, which was like a ravine, like a western ravine, like tumbling down,
yeah.
like you would have, when you see like oh man, that's gotta hurt, that kind of ravine, right? And so he put it into the high side of it.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we're just like super thankful that he's that
He's
he
okay.
didn't. Yeah. And so he ends up working things out, and he ends up getting a ride home. with a bunch of his friends, and we've got a great picture of him. There's like 9 people packed into a Chevy Suburban, right? Right.
That's a good people carrier.
But it's like 9 rugby players.
Oh, okay.
They are wedged into this thing, and they're on there. They've got to drive like another 6 hours packed into this thing, and so it's got to be just like one of the worst smelling things ever.
Oh my goodness.
And so he gets home at like 11 o'clock at night, and I want to preface it because we'll get back to this, but along the way, Tina and I had been invited into a small group, like in the South Pacific, doing disaster relief stuff.
Okay.
And it's a long story about the whole thing, but we entered into this small group that was a part of the church, and we thought it was one thing, but then we ended up developing these really, really deep relationships. And so we've been in this group probably from
In Fiji or in the
in
group?
the United States.
In the United States,
In,
okay.
in Coeur d'Alene,
Yeah.
Idaho. And we've been in this group from January to May. And so this thing with Justin is happening in May. And we're
In May, okay.
And we're
Got
getting
it.
deeper and deeper.
May what year?
Of 2010.
2010. All right.
Yeah. So like we're really, as opposed to where I was before, like all of a sudden, like a lot of this relational thing is starting to make sense, where I was just kind of going through the motions.
Right.
And even right before we started getting in the group, Tina and I were having a discussion about my faith, and she's like, I mean, what do you believe? And it's like, I just didn't see a difference between having God in my life or not having God in my life.
Right.
Like I didn't have any relationship with God. And she was just like, this is not good. And we're getting letters from Jim. He's like, we haven't seen you in church for a while. All of these things are happening, right? And finally, we get involved in this group, and I start reconnecting with people first, and we're spending time in the Word, just kind of going, learning about each other and learning about God. And then this thing with Justin happens. He gets in this wreck on Sunday night. He comes home, and it's one of my favorite memories of the whole weekend. Is like we had dogs that slept in our bedroom. I know it doesn't make any sense here, but.
Yeah, you're crazy.
He would, because he'd moved back in with us, he was 20 years old, had been living on his own for 2 years, but had run out of money, didn't have a job, so he moved back in with us
gave
for a
it a
little
try,
bit.
though.
Yeah, he gave it a good run. And he was getting his life in order again.
Yeah.
But like any mom, Tina would always be, even though he was 20, she'd be like, if he would come home late, she'd be like, hey, how you doing? I just want to make sure you're okay, right? And
Yeah.
right,
Well,
and so what he would do is that he would flip that, and whenever he would come in, he would slam the door of our bedroom open, and he would be like, "I'm home," right? And the dogs would go crazy, and it was just like total chaos. And so he does that, and we're just so thankful that he's okay, because this accident was crazy.
So we're talking early hours Monday morning.
Yeah, this is like
kind of thing.
like midnight, 1 o'clock,
Okay.
and he comes rolling in,
Right.
right? I get up, I go to work the next day. Tina gets up, she peeks in his room, and it's like, oh man, I'm so thankful he's okay. We get home at the end of the day, it's like 4 o'clock on Monday. We are all kind of around. He's been flirting with a girl. He's talking about how that's going. He's all cheesy about that. And we're just talking about like the reality of what happened in that accident. And it's like, man, we don't care about that car. We're just so thankful you're okay. And then we offer him dinner, and he's like, no, I'm going to go downtown. And it's like the first nice night of spring. You remember?
Oh,
like
gosh, we're in the air.
Yeah.
You can't feel the air on your skin
It's
because
like-
it's the same exact
yeah.
temperature, humidity,
Yeah.
almost like now.
Yeah, it's just like this,
Yeah.
like this temperature for the first time.
Yes.
And the leaves,
Yes.
it's like the leaves haven't really kicked in on the trees. They're just like
budding.
buds,
Yes.
and it's just like that. Everything is like that vibe is perfect, right? And it's like that. And so he's going to go down and spend time with his friends on that first perfect night of spring. And so he's like, no, I'm not going to have dinner. I'm going to go down and we're going to go do some stuff down there. And so he goes down, and his friend has just got this new motorcycle, and they decide that they're going to go ahead and do a quick errand down to the grocery store and back and pick up some food. And his friend is brand new to this motorcycle, and Justin climbs on the back, and they go down, pick up whatever they're picking up. And on the way back, this is what somebody said, that Justin's speaking to him, to the guy who's driving the bike, and I guess the
Is
guy
it crotch rocket?
yeah.
So he's
Yeah,
down like
yep.
this. He's way up high.
Yep,
Because I've owned crotch rockets before, and the driver's way down by the tank, and you have to look up like that.
That's exactly what's happening. And so the guy turns back, and this car comes into the intersection and goes through the intersection, and the guy doesn't know what's happening, and he hammers the brakes, and the front brakes lock up, and it just launches both the boys through
Whoa.
the air, and Justin hits the pavement and suffers massive head injuries, and he ends up dying. And the other kid is just all beat up, broken. His face was all messed up and everything else, and it was just like, for us, the day before, he was like, we were thanking God that he's alive, and then the next afternoon, Justin's dead.
Whoa.
And we were just sitting at home, and we get a call from one of his friends, and it's like, Justin's been in a motorcycle accident. And so we run over to the hospital, and Tina remembers hearing the ambulance siren. And we get to the hospital, and we tell them who we are, and they're like, and it was just like a whole different approach to any time we'd ever been in an emergency room. And
Well, she's a nurse too, right?
yeah, Tina's a nurse, right? And so she didn't work at the hospital, but she knew.
But not, yeah.
And so they take us and they put us in this little room in the back, and we call of our group, like our home group, and they like run over. And they're sitting there with us, and then the doctor comes back and he tells us, it's like, I'm sorry, we did everything we could. And so it ends up, it was an amazing night, because they ended up letting us go back into the ER room, and Justin's on the table, and it's just torturous. Like they've cleaned him up as best they could, but you can kind of get a picture of what happened. And Tina's praying for him, and she's just sobbing, like, asking God to work a miracle and bring him back.
I was going to say, yeah.
Like, she's just, and then it's like, for some reason, they let all of his friends started showing up at this emergency room. Like, by the time it was like all said and done, there was like 100 kids that were there. And
What?
Yeah, and they let them all come back into the emergency room, and like a ton of kids got to come in and like say goodbye.
Whoa.
It was nuts. And there were people praying for us out there. And then one of Justin's friends, this girl, Sammy, she's awesome. And she talked about how she and Justin were like having these conversations about God, how he'd been going to church, how Tina had been having conversations with him about walking through, like, what does it mean to have a relationship with Jesus? And she really affirmed the fact that he, even though he's not perfect, he was developing a relationship with Jesus. That he was working towards something. And maybe he wasn't perfect. Maybe he was still drinking beer or smoking weed or whatever he was doing.
Yeah.
Our kids were not perfect, but he was working towards something, and in that something, we believe that Christ covered him, and that Justin has a home in eternity. And her words to us like gave us hope. And then the other thing that was really cool is like how our group surrounded us in that moment, and how they walked us through like that torture. And then even to the point of like walking us out to the car and helping us through. We had Justin, we had him cremated.
Yeah, okay.
And through that whole process, and just they walked us through everything, and through the memorial service. And we were so blessed. Like the church opened up we had like, I don't know how many people at the memorial service. It was packed. This huge church was packed.
Whoa.
And it was all because we had relationships with wrestling and rugby and all these other things. We knew just like a ton of people. It was our home.
So a lot of non-Christians in the house then, too.
Yeah. And Jim ended up preaching a message of salvation, and we ended up having 5 baptisms at a funeral.
That's crazy. Wow.
You know, and to this day, like some of those kids are.
Is this the old baptism you pull out the wall? And
No,
like the baptism tank
they
is
had like
behind
they
the
had,
stage?
No, it was they had a baptismal just on the side of the main stage. Like
Just ready
it's
to
a
go?
huge place. Yeah, it's ready to go.
Yeah, baby.
And
Let's get it.
and so there was like 5 guys that gave their life to Christ, and I think one of them is with Jesus now. You know,
Whoa.
and then the others, you know, it's like I know them and I know they're still walking with the Lord.
Whoa.
And
Sorry, guys, I keep saying whoa. I'm just like,
so one of the things that came out of it is like the morning after we got out of the emergency room, and this was the part where like I enter into it, and we woke up and we had to call all of our family on the East Coast. And so we're in Idaho, and Idaho's on West Coast time. Almost all of our family is in Pennsylvania or on the East Coast. And so we get up at like 3 or 4 in the morning and we start calling family to tell them that like grandson, cousin, he's passed away, right? Justin's dead, and starting that process. And then at some point in time, Tina and I have this conversation, and like I have to come to a decision about my relationship with Christ. And it's like, is God horrible? Does he allow bad things to happen? And is he just like, he's just like a puppet master who doesn't care about anything? Like he just sets things in motion, and it's just the consequences be what they are, right? Yeah. You know, like it's all a big play.
Yeah.
Or is he actually care about us, and these things happen for a purpose? And am I willing to follow him even when it gets really, really, really hard, and trust him? And I made that decision to follow him then. And it's funny because I had been baptized when the first church first started. Jim was like, "You need to be baptized," right? And I'm like, man, if I get baptized and it just stops him bugging me, I'll get back. Yeah, hey. Yeah. You know,
So be
so
relentless
if that's what
as a
you're telling
friend.
me I need to do, then I'll do that. You know,
Okay.
I'm a pretty cooperative dude, and so, but I really believe that I gave my life to Jesus in that morning moment after we lost Justin, when I made a decision to follow him.
Wow.
And then that plays out like all the way to now. It's like, what does it mean to the importance for me of a believer is someone who follows Jesus, and they're changed by Jesus, and they're on mission for Jesus. You know, and so following it is a consistent theme that you're going to hear me talking about through everything.
Right.
You know, and so we give our life. We ended up doing that, and kind of time starts marching on, and we end up starting a small group for like college age kids. Remember I was telling you?
Yes, that was the first
Total mayhem,
leading
right?
of
Yeah.
our group.
Yeah, total mayhem. But we have like good friends that are helping us do it, and we see people's lives changing, and we end up helping plant one of the campuses, and we end up doing a lot of things out of this group, and it was really impactful for Tina and I. And it ends up leading towards somebody saying that, you know, maybe you should think about going into ministry. You know, and yeah, I totally agree with what you were saying earlier. Like, we are all ministers of the gospel when we follow Jesus.
Definitely.
You know, we're all called to ministry.
Yeah, because like, I mean, even somebody like sorry to interrupt your story, but like I mean, if you're in control of like the marketing department or something like that, to be able to steer whether it's a Christian organization or not, like you know, when if Tui has like suggestions on like, hey, we can steer this content, you know, to point in this direction. It's like that's helpful, and that's ministry, right?
Yeah. Well, even deeper, it's like you and I. Like if we're friends, if we're walking together, my ministry is to walk with you, right? As a brother, a brother in Christ, and then it's
or
to
marriage.
Help. Yeah.
Like if
absolutely.
between a husband and a wife.
Right. And so ministry exists in that walk with my brothers and sisters, and helping them to grow in Christ and to follow Christ on a daily basis, to encourage one another daily.
Yeah.
That's ministry. And that's a mission, you know, and the idea of like, I think you mentioned something about missionary, and it's like, I don't really consider myself a missionary, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I can't, because I'm not allowed to from that perspective in Fiji.
Right.
Right. And so I am
not a missionary.
Yeah.
But a missionary.
But we are all missionaries.
We're all missionaries, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Into the world around us. And so, and so, you know, but down the road, you know, somebody's like, hey man, maybe you should enter into like as a profession, as a full-time thing. And we had been, that's where the Fiji thing comes in. That group had talked about, you know, coming here and doing things. And there was a pastor, Jone Kata. He was a Assemblies of God pastor, and man, one of the Tui, I think you know him. Did you know Tal Jone?
Yeah.
Do you know him?
Kata? Do you remember him? Your dad knows him. I guarantee your dad knows him.
Wait.
He was the head of the Pacific Bible College, and then he ended up starting a church up in Nandi, but he was Assemblies of God.
In Usuri?
He was in Nandi, but he was involved in like the Bible College in Wanandoy. And
Where is that? Wanandoy.
that's just outside of Suva.
Okay, because I'm not really familiar with a lot of things.
Man, it's a really cool Bible college. And the pastor that we share our farm with, Tatalavakiatu, he was there. he was super connected here in the islands, super influential. I think it was really cool because it's like as people would graduate from the college, it was like he would set them up to get on a plane or whatever, and it's like, congratulations, now go. And he'd send them to Tonga, and he'd send them to all these places,
Yeah.
and he was really cool.
This is Tala Tala Tatau.
Kata,
Johnny.
Johnny Kata.
Oh.
He passed away, yeah?
Yeah. During COVID. It was brutal.
Oh. Is that the accident?
No.
Oh, sorry. There was an accident in Singapore, remember?
No, he had
Okay.
like how many people do we know? He had diabetes.
Oh, okay.
And he had an amputation and,
Oh,
and
shit.
an infection
Classic
and,
story, yeah.
and COVID. So here's one of the most well-known pastors in the Assemblies of God in
Fiji.
and his memorial service. There's like nobody can go.
Man, that was such a sad.
brutal.
That was one of the most like disappointing parts of COVID. Obviously, people passing away and whatever, but just like the result of the lockdowns, meaning that like there was like my father-in-law's mentor. His name was Elmer. Anyways, guy who influenced hundreds, thousands of people, and influenced people who influenced hundreds and thousands of people. And like his sons and daughters.
Yeah.
When there would have been like probably 1,000 people that
Oh,
would
yeah,
have
I
shown
know.
up at these people's funerals. It's just like, really?
I think it probably, in Tautala Chone's case, it saved probably 3 or 4 cows' lives, but that's a whole nother-
Yeah, right. Exactly. Or
I think-
10.
So anyway, Tautala Chone he had been educated in Missouri, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he'd come back here and he'd done a bunch of things. He'd made a good friend out of a good friend of ours' father, and he had come to visit him in Idaho. Someone we knew invited him to the church in Post Falls,
Yeah.
in Coeur d'Alene, and he'd come and he'd seen like our small groups and how we were growing and what we were doing and everything else. And he's like, man, we need this in Fiji. And so his perspective was like, in Fiji, we're fantastic at evangelizing, but what happens is we bring people in the door and they're leaving as fast as they come in.
Yeah.
They're going out the back door, and that we need to focus on discipleship more. And so he saw like the active process of intentional relational discipleship that was happening at this church in Post Falls, and he's like, we want this. And so he invited us to come over. And so a year after Justin passed away, our group, God blessed us with enough money to be able to come over. And we came over and we did a discipleship training in Nandi with his church and a number of other churches. And then we went to Suva, to Calvary Temple, and we did a discipleship training down in Suva with like, I don't know how many people. We met Tatau there on that first trip.
I got it.
And then over the course of like the next 7 years, we ended up coming back here like, I don't know how many times, like 10 times.
How about like doing ministry that I have a bunch of questions that
Yeah.
we'll go back to
Yeah,
later.
it's loaded with-
We'll go back. Like, but how did the situation with Justin, like, and then doing ministry so soon, like within that first year?
Yeah.
That must have been like, how do you not minister through that lens at all times, or like see your life like because that's like an everyday thing. You wake up and you got to deal with those emotions.
Yeah.
Even now, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But but I guess you're here now.
Yeah.
And that's just part of the.
Yeah, it is.
Now
And-
you just work. It's part of the journey.
Yeah,
I
it is.
guess. Like,
I know it was really rough.
did it help you process the sorrow to just throw yourself into ministry and caring
Yeah.
for people? Because like you're dealing with stuff yourself,
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying, and then you're going into this situation where like, hey, we're trying to now mirror and like give people an example and show people Jesus' love, and it's like, man, but we're actually in the trenches here ourselves.
Yeah. I think it really created in me like to be more empathetic. My worldview prior to this was from a guy who worked in industry, a guy who was in the Navy, and a guy who was a wrestling coach. So my worldview was not one that was full of empathy and care.
Stephanie would agree that I need empathy as well.
And so, and I'm still not like an empathetic person, like an especially empathetic person. Tina would be the first to be on board with that.
She's at home. She's like,
Yes.
say that again.
Praise Jesus.
Yeah.
However you do that. And so she would have been, but it just changed me. It made such a difference in me to become a follower. right? I don't, and I think that's what I was talking about. It's like I went from where I was, like I'm in total control of my life, to I am going to follow you no matter where that takes me. And so if that means that I'm going to have to do this thing,
That was that decision,
then
and you're
I
like,
am going to, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow you, and I'm going to do probably a terrible job to begin with. And I've grown a ton since then, you know, in the nature of like a mature disciple, self-reflecting and looking back, it's like I've grown a lot. And a lot of it is like for making myself spend time with the Lord, making myself do other things that matter to grow.
yeah,
But, you know, it's just like, God, if that's what you want me to do. I also have a wife who's like the same way. You know, Ryan achieved big things in wrestling because of both of us. And
Right.
and it wasn't just having a dad that was like a coach, it was having a mom that was like had certain characteristics that she had,
Yeah.
that, you know, the stubbornness and like we need to do this.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, that's what spurred us forward, because on my own I think I'm kind of lazy, and you know, and I'm a little bit like, everything will be fine.
Right.
We'll do it all just work itself out. And you know, I'm a little more introverted than some might imagine, and
can relate with that.
yeah, you know, and it's like, given the opportunity, I would rather spend time with myself than other people. And Tina, she enters into it like, we need to do this, right? And that's where the two of us together, it was a huge difference maker for both of us.
Yeah. So you're in Fiji,
Yeah. So
or you meet Tatao.
So we
on
meet.
that short,
We ended up like over the course of like we come back here and we're trying to invest in a couple different churches and pastors, and we believe, like Real Life Ministries believes in coaching relationships, and like instead of having like a missions department that funds like churches and other things, like sends money into certain places, I think one of the realizations you pick up in missions is that there's not enough money to make a difference.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
You can make a little bit of a difference in certain places, but there's just not enough money to meet the need, because there'd just be more need. Like you can only do so much.
Yeah.
And so what we invest heavily in is helping churches orient towards being disciple-making churches. And so we invest in coaching relationships, we invest in time spent with, we invest in conversational growth of pastors towards developing the churches as disciple-making churches. Churches that focus on, first and foremost, is the pastor a disciple of Jesus? And are the people around him disciples of Jesus? Is he discipling them? Is he helping them grow in their faith, in their walk? Are they building like real relationships?
So how would your church say, if there was a church in Africa,
Yeah.
that would, you know, you had a
so-
member of the congregation who was like, hey, we could really use some funds to extend this church.
Yeah.
Like they don't just
No.
send up money to build walls.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that would not be, there's like other churches that do that.
Yeah. And then,
And so
right.
we have a huge network of relationships through the church to other churches, and it's
Yeah.
like, we don't do that, but we know somebody who does. And
That's awesome.
But there are, so we have a pastor that we walk with, my good friend Paul that you met, Paul
Yes.
Burns, he
Yeah.
was here.
Yeah.
He walks with a pastor in Uganda, Ronald, and they are like brothers, right? But his focus is on helping Ronald grow as a disciple and a disciple maker. And that the church growth and the depth of that church will grow. And then Paul also has relationships with other churches that are more focused on like the financial, meeting
physical,
the needs.
yeah.
The needs of like,
Right.
there's an orphanage that they help out with. And so there's other churches and other organizations that do that, but Real Life Ministries focuses on the development of disciple-making culture.
Yeah.
And that being the very core of what churches.
Boy, I can relate with that. That's
Yeah.
what my parents did all my growing
Yeah.
up years. Like I was a missionary kid. And
Yeah.
so their whole, I mean, that's kind of YWAM's thing is discipleship,
Yeah.
DTS. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the first discipleship training school.
Yeah.
That's the first school you go
Yeah.
through. And so that was their whole kind of thing, was just, you know, doing small groups, living amongst,
Yeah.
you know, setting an example,
Yeah.
you know, going to visit him, hanging out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ministering to people through what they like.
Yeah.
My dad just did. He was basically ministry through farming.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, and so what they did on their last tour, I guess, or their last like long-term missions in Africa was they just set up a pastor. Basically, they made the connection, got established with a local church, found a guy who they could like build into at Pastor Peace, and he's like, they exited, and they're in the kind of the place where they can gather funds to send to support the needs of the church. But Pastor Peace has now got that foundation, and like, how much more effective is Pastor Peace in Malawi, which is where he is? I mean, I know Paul's in Uganda with that gentleman, but speaking to people in his culture, in his own language,
right? Absolutely.
And like a couple months ago, they had there's 30 or 40 people that got baptized.
Yeah.
And like when I went to the church, it was the size of this veranda, maybe double the width.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're going to need to expand the church now.
Right.
Because this, a guy with just a solid base.
Yeah.
Through discipleship.
Yeah.
And, understanding just the basics of the word. Because I think the problem with a lot of those cultures, and like with cultures maybe that are newer to Christianity, is that there's a lot of, not heretical teaching, but just it can go wayward very fast, depending on the teacher. So I think just like, hey, one step every day towards Jesus, and then teaching people to do that with other people.
Yeah.
That's such a simple. Yeah. I mean, this conversation right here.
Yeah. I think it's like one of the things from my perspective and the perspective of the organization we're with is, the goal is spiritual maturity, right? And to help one another grow to Christ likeness, right? We'll never achieve fully being like him, but our goal is to always be working towards being more like him, and in our lives. And so there's what we call it, or the way we look at it, is intentional relational discipleship. And like all of our relationships have a purpose. If we're a follower of Jesus, if we're disciples of Jesus, if we're disciple makers, we're to go into the world and make disciples of Jesus in his name. And that doesn't mean that it's like it's only at the church. It means that it's like right here, right now, my relationship with Tui, my relationship with Koroi. There should be elements of discipling in that, in every aspect of our life. I think about the girls that work for you. Yeah. And that's blessing that's happened in that. It's crazy.
They're a blessing to everybody who, I mean, not everybody. For those of you who might have been kicked out of the shop recently. I don't know if they've actually kicked anybody out of the shop.
I don't know. Tui Koroi would probably be like, man, they're not all they're cracked up to be.
I know that, Archie and Va are a reflection of, they are a reflection of
Jesus.
The love and the care that I think Jesus would want us to show through a barista.
Yeah.
Or a person who manages a coffee shop.
The crazy wild growth of those two women, from where it's awesome. It's awesome to see Jesus working out something in their lives that's just incredible. Yeah. And we're just so blessed that we get to walk with them in that process. Yeah. But it's an intentional process. There's a purpose. And if we just built a clique that met, on a regular basis in this place, and that's all we ever did, then my view is like we'd be failing. Yeah. At some point in time, we have to we identify, equip, and release people to ministry. And there has to be a point where it's like, okay, we've walked you up to the point. It's like little bird, time to go, fly free, and
Yeah, the hard part about that, I find, is that a lot of churches don't do that part well.
Yeah, it's really hard.
And that is the one critique I have of that, because it can be very hard to execute. Yep. The group has grown, it's matured, and we're talking about, like, say, a small group, right? Yeah. Or just a bunch of friends who are hanging out, doing intentional conversation together. And they've added to the group, and now it's like, okay, we need to split this thing up. Or churches have, say once a year. I was part of a church, so at the beginning of every year, Bible study groups got divided up so that, and it actually, the way that we did it, I found it killed the momentum that we built. And I think we were trying something out that was new when I was on the board, and I'm part of the people who made the decision to do this. So I'm not saying the church. I think there's a very special way to do that, so that you don't just lose all of the intimacy that is in that group. Right. But you also, you need to push out of it at
Yeah,
a certain point. Otherwise, you just become like cliquey.
Yeah,
or I guess.
and I think when we look at Jesus and how he, his process for starting all of this, right? And I go back to like my root verse to look at is John 17, and I get to preach on that in a couple weeks, But it talks about I have completed the work that you've given me to do, and this is before he goes to the cross, right? And so you would say, well, he came to and Tina right now is cringing because she knows it's like David, be very, very careful, right? Because I want to say that he is going to save us, right? He is going to go to the cross, and he is going to give his body and his blood, for our sin. But one of the things I see in that statement in 17 is like, I have completed this work, and he's talking about his disciples, and so he's walked with these 12 men up to this point, and even Judas, he's talking about. He's walked with these.
Talking about Judas.
Yeah, he's walked with these 12 guys up to this point. And that is the work that he has finished on earth, is developing these 12 men to go into the world and make disciples in his name, right? To go out and take this message and to take who he is and spread it, And so 2,000 years later, we look back and it's like,
Yeah.
let's come up with a plan for reaching the world for Jesus that doesn't look anything like him. Right?
Yeah.
His method, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We're going to go and we're going to do a study and we're going to do something. We're going to do and instead, what our heart is like, let's look at Jesus's methods.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
like
if we want his results, we need to use his methods. And so that idea of raising people up, and the thing that I think matters is like maturity, right? Identifying spiritual maturity. And that's one of the things is like, as I'm walking with you, it's like I see spiritual maturity. There's parts of me, and then when we talk about like spiritual maturity, it's almost like comparing it to like the growth of a child, right? The physical growth of a child mirrors the spiritual growth of a believer. It's like when you first give your life to Christ, you're an infant, right? And we see scriptural references to that about not feeding him milk and everything, and
moving from milk to meat.
Yeah. And so like a baby, you're not going to leave a baby when somebody gives their life to Christ. You're not just going to leave them out and let them wander around aimlessly, right?
Right.
Not just like your own baby. You're not going to just like, okay, we had a baby, let's just leave it, and it'll figure out how to get its own food.
Although, as a dad with a young kid, like when I got because like as a guy,
heck?
like I'm not carrying a lot of babies when I'm a young guy. You know, like I'm not like going up to moms, and it's just not really like a young guy thing to do, at least in Canada.
Yeah.
I will say, like, man, like Fijians are very, very different with how they care for children. But when I got handed Iliki for the first time, I'm like,
dude,
what the heck am I?
Hold the
I'm
head.
meant to care. I'm like, this thing's gonna live under my care,
right?
Like this thing, my son.
Yeah.
But I'm like, holy crap! What did I get myself
They
into?
pee in your face and they do things like that. It's like, this is not in the manual. No,
I was just like, wow, who let me be in charge of this thing?
So we look at it like, so I think one of the best ways is we help people grow from being an infant to being a parent. And it's more than, being a parent in Jesus is more than just being an adult, right? Because until you have a child, you're not fully mature.
Right.
Think about how much you've matured when you had your boys.
Oh, for sure.
You were a grown-up. You had all the characteristics of an adult.
But the thing that you need to be careful with that is that, and I'm not trying to, I'm just playing this out, is that like, I think I've said it before, is like, everybody's always like, oh, wait till you get to high school, and you get to high school. It's like, wait till you graduate, you got to go to university, then you graduate and you move out of the house. It's like, well, wait till you get engaged, you get married, wait till you have kids, and it's like, okay, when does this? But you're right, because once you have kids,
it's a whole different
it's like
thing.
you kind of, there is no other level that, like, people aren't like, well, just wait until.
Yeah.
When you say that now that I'm saying that out
when
loud,
you have
it's like,
kids,
it feels like kids is like the last thing that people are like, I don't get the just wait until.
Yeah.
I don't get that anymore.
Yeah, when you're an adult, it's like you're still all about you, right?
Yeah.
The focus of an adult, a single adult, or even a married adult without kids, and Lord knows Vance, what his name, JD Vance, he took a lot of crap for this
really?
For talking about cat ladies. Like,
yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to stay away from that. But
we'll get into that. Oh yeah.
So he, but it's like until you have children, right? As soon as you have a kid, your life is no longer really about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
in theory,
Yeah.
right?
As much as you want it to be.
Yes, there are outliers. That's like there's people who father children, and it's like nothing ever happened, right? No difference in their life. But
Yeah.
a mature parent is a different person than an adult. And so when we talk about like spiritual maturity, we talk about someone who's actually making disciples of Jesus, right? That is a mature disciple of Christ. Somebody who is actually a disciple who is making disciples
Got it.
of Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's kind of their focus. And so in that, like the disciples themselves, Jesus raised them to maturity. They were capable of being disciple makers themselves, of going into the world. He knew that. And so when he released them, there was no follow-up. I mean, the Holy Spirit was there to empower them.
Yeah.
Right? And so he was maintaining contact, in his way through the Holy Spirit. But, when we talk about like branching a group, right, there's still an element of maintaining that contact that has to happen.
Right.
In order to have that consistency in relational development and group development. It's like you don't just branch a group, and it's like, you guys go do that, and you're all good.
Yeah.
You have to actually do work.
Yeah, establishing good parents to
Yeah.
take over
Yep.
the next,
Yep.
to
Right, it's all part of that process.
Yeah.
So it is easy to talk about, but it's almost
Gosh,
impossible to do.
when you say almost impossible, it's like 99 out of 100 won't figure it out.
Yep. Our church is super good at raising up group leaders, developing group leaders. They have great processes for identifying, equipping, and releasing leaders and all these things, and it's still super hard.
Yeah. Just to be clear, we're not talking about discipleship is hard.
Yeah. It is hard.
Executing discipleship on a large scale with many people in a way that builds up Big C Church is very difficult. But like discipleship one-on-one, like my thing is I don't want to make people feel like discipleship is difficult. Like it is, but it's not. It's
Right.
as easy as sitting down with somebody. And
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you guys, like one of the most impactful things that I was a part of was a group of 3 guys. I was the youngest. The next guy was 10 years older than me. And the next guy was like 10 years older than him.
Yeah.
It was like 3 of us. And we were all just kind of at different stages in life. And so maybe I brought a bit more of the immature enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And the next guy was the associate pastor. And the other guy was on our board of elders. And so and we meet together once a week in a coffee shop.
Yep.
And we decided we get there like, hey, what should we read? Chapter of the Bible.
Yeah.
And so we'd all order our coffee. We'd sit down, read this chapter quietly to ourselves.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, hey, let's just talk about what stands out to each other.
Yeah.
And that was it. It's John chapter 5. All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about John 5.
Yeah.
And after 15, 20 minutes of silence, it was just like the conversation just started flowing.
Somebody has to have the guts to actually engage with it.
Yeah, and but it was so easy. Like, and that was like you'd walk away from those moments not feeling like I'm going out for coffee with the guys. That's what I tell Steph.
Yeah.
I'm going to meet up with Sean and Barry.
Yeah.
And that was just like it was instrumental in me being able to now tell these stories about like, hey, I feel like it is actually something that can be done by everybody.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be some
It's
guy
true.
who's gone to Bible school
No,
to figure it out. Like,
well,
we could do it right now. It's just that there'd be 10 minutes of silence while me and you came up with our thoughts.
And you have to. It's like nothing in what I've said says anything about Bible college for me, right?
Yeah.
I am a woodworker. I'm a wrestling coach. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I am a rockhead of the highest caliber, right? But I've had people who have invested in me. And I have, when we go back to like you talking about wrestling, it's like I've done work. I've done the lifting, I've done the running, I've done the things that it's hard to maintain it on the long haul. And there's times when I get weak and I get a little fat and lazy, but there's other times where it's like, man, I got to get my act together, and re-engage and be a grown up and take control of my relationship with Jesus. I've got to do my part.
Yeah.
He's always going to do his part. I have to do my part.
The him part doesn't change.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't change. I'm the part that changes all the time,
Exactly.
based on the way the wind blows, and it could be looking at Twitter or whatever it is, that now I'm spiraling into like obsession about something stupid.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'm going to be hooked on that for a while or whatever.
I get it.
But I have to do my part.
Yeah.
And that's something that we really lean into is like my part, God's part. And
Did you ever think about going to Bible school?
no, I'm not a student. I'm not a college student.
You don't strike me as somebody who would love the academic process.
No.
We'll say it like that.
No. I would be the one that's like, you need to come and talk to your son. Right?
Yeah,
It's
okay.
like you. Every student meeting that my parents had was always like, how is it? He's capable of so much more.
Oh, classic. But he just doesn't apply himself.
He doesn't apply himself.
Yeah. I just saw this reel on Instagram a few days ago, and it was I think two pastors of a church, and they're talking, openly about. There's a group of like 4 guys in their 40s who have been friends since they were small, and you know who you are, and we've recently had to talk about like them sitting separately at church because they constantly are like.
He said duty.
Yeah, like that. And I'm
That's right.
And then I went into the comments and it's like people are like, it's called growing up, man. You're 40, and I'm like, yeah, true, but like, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't want to grow up. If that's what growing up looks like, I don't want any part of it.
I know that's sometimes what I think. Like, I don't know. There's a time and a place for laughter, but I love that kind of stuff. But there's a Christian rapper by the name of Lecrae.
Yep.
And he's like, he's not. He gets a lot of flack, I think, because he was just one of the more well-known. Like, he got a Grammy Award, and like, I think he's done a great job for making people aware of the gospel and the love of Jesus. And he's not perfect by any means, but he has a song, I think it's called Beautiful Feet. If you guys go check it, it's an old song. But while you were talking about that, it was like, the lyrics are something like, I can't remember the name of the guy, but say Andre, he was born in Killically, was walking down an alley. He caught a bullet in the back of the head, which left him bleeding badly. Then he goes to hospital anyways. I can't remember the lyrics. And then he got saved and he met Christ. And I'm trying to remember the lyrics. But anyways, everybody tells him that he has to go to Bible school. And so he goes to Bible college. He comes back. And all of his peers have like moved on. And it's just the story of a guy who was like, I think the story is, how beautiful are the feet was the message of the song, that just go, whether educated or not educated. And I think that's, like, if you're called to Bible college, like, by all means, do the thing. Like, go build your theology. Do it well. But it's not a must. And there's a lot of, many.
There's a lot of fishermen in those 12.
Yes.
Right?
It's just crazy how many times you see, like, the stories start with like, oh, Jesus was sitting under an olive tree or under a fig tree, and then he got angry at it. Or like, Jesus is in a boat. It's not like this very complex. It was, the stories are usually out of like something that we can picture ourselves doing. At least.
And I think he met his disciples when he in Matthew 4:19 it says, "Come follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Right? Come follow me, be changed by me, go on mission for me. But who is he talking to? He's talking to a couple fishermen, right? And these fishermen, right? And they see something in Jesus that it's like, yeah, we're in, and they go and they follow him, and he's changed them, and he sends them on mission, you know. And I think that same exists for all of us. So we all have that opportunity to follow him, be changed by him, and be on mission for him. And that's what he asked of me, And I have had people. I've been really blessed with people who I said it before, who have invested heavily. And it wasn't like I joined Real Life Ministries and then they just made me a pastor. I had to go through a couple-year ordination process.
Just to be clear.
And I had to go through a
vetting.
Vetting, exactly. And
they can be brutal too.
Oh, it was frightening.
Yeah.
And because we had, like, the elders that oversaw our church were brilliant men, super smart guys who took their role very, very seriously. In like, if we were going to bring somebody in as a shepherd for this church, for this flock, then, we need to be serious about the qualifications of that person. Yeah. And am I a qualified person? Am I qualified to be ordained? You know? And so it was something. Yeah. But I also had somebody that, Fred Basset, he was a ex-Navy guy, a senior chief, and or Master Chief, excuse me. I'll have just
That
insulted
sounds so
him.
epic.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Master Chief.
Master Chief
Oh,
Bati.
that sounds so epic.
He was fantastic, and he really poured into me a ton. I started out working at the church with him, co-pastoring with him, and just walking with him helped me grow immensely. And
What about it?
just
Like if you could summarize it, I guess.
if I could summarize, it's just like these big conversations about Jesus, about leading people, about helping people know Christ, about loving people well, about shepherding, about when it meant to be a pastor, about just deep like these kind of conversations.
Yeah.
This is what walking with him was like. It's like we're going to talk about stuff and how we're going to help people know Jesus, and it was super influential for me. You know?
So, how do you, like, I've heard you tell the story about, am I going to interrupt your story?
No. I don't even know where I am, so we're good. You can change it.
We're jumping back, we're jumping forward, we're
Yeah.
all over the place now. But as a father to two sons, I guess, similar to you,
Yeah.
how do you get I've heard you tell the story about Justin a lot of times, and I don't want to ask you something inappropriate. If there is, we can always just cut it out.
Yeah.
How do you get through that story every time without like totally breaking down? Like I don't like I was trying every time I hear you tell the story, I'm like, if I picture like something like that happening to one of my sons, like I have to hold the tears back. Like it gets me very emotional.
So that Sunday night when Justin was sitting there in the the Monday night before he walked out the door, right? We're sitting there in the living room, and he's talking about all these other things, and he's getting ready to go, and we're never going to see him again. And we are talking about, that car, and it's like, Justin, the car means nothing, but you mean everything.
That is a conversation that you had.
Yeah.
Before you walked out the door.
And Tina and I, the night, had just also had that conversation where it's like, if I lost one of the boys, I don't know what I would do. Right? And it's no joke. And I think I have over time, I've developed a pretty good system for compartmentalizing. Right? And the ability to engage with things almost like you're kind of working from the outside looking in, right? And I'm thankful for that skill. I think it's something that took time to develop. I think it's something that, because I had to engage with it as we did discipleship trainings at Real Life Ministries, and part of it is like, we would do a small group like we do, and you would do, we would use the story of the prodigal son, right? Like we would start our group by telling the story, and who do you identify with and why, right?
In that story.
Yeah. And
the
so
father,
always,
the older brother, the prodigal son.
Yeah. And so there's not a part of my relationship to Justin and Ryan and Tina that doesn't get engaged in that story in a real way. And so you're always talking about this thing that changed my life, right? And so engaging with it is just one of those, it's something that over time and through grief, you learn how to compartmentalize. And also, I had really good friends that helped me walk through it and walk through the grief of losing a child. And I'd learned early on that I need to decompress. I'm really moved by music. And I have a playlist that's just about Justin. Right? It's like if you played one of those songs right now as I'm talking about it, I'd be a wreck. Like I'd be sobbing and it'd be all over.
So do you ever play it, or is it like
absolutely.
a playlist to like?
Yeah, it's like a maintenance.
Oh, okay.
Like especially if I'm working on something and nobody's around.
Yeah.
I'll go and I'll put on Justin's playlist, right? And it's got like I can't tell you the names of the songs right off the top of my head, but it's got like songs that he loved, songs that we played at his memorial, other songs that are related, like the thought of
Yeah, sure.
it is
Yeah,
him.
so things you listen to, things that remind you
Yeah.
of moments with
and
him.
and those
lyrics
songs,
that,
like in public situations, sometimes they catch me off guard. It's like there's one song by Third Eye Blind that as we were walking into the church for the memorial service, it was playing over because they were going to play the music during his service, and it was playing. He was like checking the sound system as we walked in, and
Just
so it was
that.
as
Just
soon
sound
as
check.
that song comes on my playlist, it's just like I can visually picture
that moment.
right now. There's one from Citizen Cope with
Oh,
Santana,
gosh.
right? That depending on the moment, it's like I'm
Dude, those songs make you cry. Citizen
Yeah.
Cope make you cry without this.
yeah, and I remember sitting next to my dad at the memorial service, and when Santana starts playing the guitar part of that song, it's just like I hear my dad gasp, right, and I can picture that.
Wow.
And there's Sheryl Crow singing "Sweet Child of Mine," right? There's songs and other stuff that go along with that is, and so what I do is I engage with those as I
Just
need
let
to,
it happen.
and I'm a sobbing mess.
Yeah.
Right. I'm 250 pounds of
Tears and
yeah,
swollen
just
eyes.
a disaster. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
This isn't, I guess I'm asking you this because somebody listening to this, or me, or one of these guys,
Yeah.
Koroy or Tui, one of us will lose a kid. It just
Maybe.
it happen. Maybe
It happens,
like it
yeah.
can happen. Like it can happen.
yeah.
And like I feel like what you've walked through, and I'm just always impressed by the way that you guys are able to recount the story
Yeah.
in a way that is actually like not disastrous to your guys' whole evenings or whatever time we're talking. And it's like to know like, hey, you have a playlist that you just let yourself be when that like play. I need a moment.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play the songs.
Yeah.
And you just let yourself
And
have the
there's,
moment.
like for Tina, one of the things that she went through is she saw a counselor, and the counselor took her through a process of, I forget exactly what they call it. She's twitching to say it right now. She's probably messaged to me.
Yeah. If you see any questions to you, like after you feel like we're like pausing here, let us know, hey?
And so
Well, I'll just let you guys talk.
Okay.
Okay.
When you're done, then
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
time for questions.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
sure.
So Tina, she saw a counselor, and that counselor took her through a process of visualization, and it's like the process, and it helped Tina immensely to like visualize, closing her eyes, visualizing Jesus in front of her, and then going through a process of taking whatever is on her mind, whatever things that are whatever's really burdening her, and putting it into a box and taping up that box. And you walk the person through that whole
like a
thing, every
multiple
step of
step.
it. Yep. And placing that box at the feet of Jesus and allowing Jesus to pick it up and to put it into like a library of your crap, right? And then getting to a place where when I ask Jesus to help me deal with it, he's going to take it out and he's going to bring it back into my life, and we're going to go through it together. And
Got it. So it's not like he's burning the box in an
no, it's
incinerate.
not going away.
It's not going away.
Because you still have to deal with it.
Got it.
Right? But you're going to deal with it in his time with him in a way that helps you get through this thing. And it's super effective. Like,
I can just picture it now like, being. That's just such a great analogy.
Yeah.
Never mind an actual practical way of dealing with
Yeah.
grief.
yeah.
Wow.
And I think it's super effective for anything that anybody goes through. It's like, how do you function after trauma? You some people don't. Some people just can't function after trauma. But it's like I think about the people who do, and they've learned how to compartmentalize, but at the same time, and even then, it's going to bleed out sooner or later. If you compartmentalize and don't deal with it, it's gonna bleed in some way, in some part of your life, and something's going to happen. And we see that. I saw that, in personally in a couple different areas, not in my life necessarily or Tina's, but other areas around us.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with the crap. You have to deal with the hard things. You have to confront it and work through it. And again, it goes back to that mentality of you have to work through it. Jesus is going to do his part. You have to do your part. I love the analogy of Lazarus coming out of the tomb, right? And Lazarus Jesus raises him from the dead, right? And leaves the bandages on him. He staggers out there, and it's almost like you picture him in like the, that mummy waddling out, straight-legged arms like this, and then Jesus says, Lazarus, come out. And Lazarus responds. Lazarus does his part. And then Jesus doesn't take the bandages off, though when he spoke it into existence, those bandages could have fallen right off of him. He tells the disciples that they need to do their part, right? They're the ones who have to take the bandages off of Lazarus. And it's the same thing for us. We're the ones who have to unwrap things and sort things out. And Jesus, he's going to speak life into these things, but we have to do our part, in the whole process as well.
I understand. Yeah.
And Tina and I, we went through the hard work of walking through grief. And we had people, just like Lazarus had people, Jesus, the people around him to help. We had people around us that helped us unwrap the bandages.
How do you, so moving away from like your personal experience, so a lot of us will know somebody, we will know somebody who will go through a hard time of sorrow, whether it's losing a child or a family member or whatever. What was really impactful for you from the community that surrounded you, that helped you and Tina and Ryan kind of sort through the grief and be able to just handle your lives? What was something that's like, wow, that from those people was a big deal at that moment?
So like our core group of people, they just listened and they were with us. And they didn't offer platitudes. It wasn't like, they were praying for us. Mike Jensen sat outside of our house the day after the accident, and he sat there in his car and he just prayed for us. We looked out the window and it's like, what's Mike doing? Right? And he sat there for like an hour or something, just praying. Right? And they were with us and they walked with us.
And Mike just drove off without.
Well, I don't know. He may have come in.
Okay.
But for a while, he just sat there for a long
That's
time,
so
just
cool.
praying over us. And then other people just, they helped. Like I said, they went with us to the mortuary, not the mortuary, but they went to the funeral place, and they helped us pick up Justin's remains, and they sat next to us, and they listened in group when we were talking through how we were feeling, right? And they asked really, really good questions. And one of the things that was most impactful to me, and I use it in grief situations, is tell me about that person. Tell me about, like people would tell us about Justin, right?
Come on.
It's amazing, but that's amazing what happens in that.
Really, huh?
Yeah.
Oh.
When something bad happens to someone they love, everybody wants to dodge talking about that person, right? If you think about
You're
it.
so right. Yeah, well, that's why I'm like,
Right?
really? Come on, man.
And so
really.
when you engage with somebody and you're like, man, tell me about, like one of the ones that impacted me most is a friend of ours. I was the pastor. I have to go to hospice house, and hospice is a place where people who are reaching the end of their life, they go to get final care, right? So I go and visit, and everyone's sitting around, and the person in question is getting ready to pass away, and I ask his wife, it's like, so tell me how you met. And she tells me the story of like the beginning of the relationship, and the next thing you know, we're laughing, we're talking about how, and you learn how to ask good questions that add depth to it, and sometimes bring humor into it, and humans are incredibly resilient. God has made us incredibly resilient, and we love the people we love, and we love to talk about those people. And when somebody engages you in a conversation about the person that you love, it's super meaningful, because that shows them that they really care about you and they care about them. And that's what matters.
Yeah. Instead of dodging it, like something that's just awkward.
Platitudes or...
Okay, so I'm an idiot. I have to say that every live, right, guys? So, what is a platitude?
A platitude is saying something just to make somebody feel good.
everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, everything happens
Okay.
for a reason. That is a great example of,
Yeah.
of the word platitude.
Okay.
Right, of saying something that you think is going to make a difference, and really it just is not
Helpful.
helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understand.
Yeah, it's one of those things that when you're sitting in grief, when you're sitting in some sort of trial or something, it's like, yeah, I don't want to hear about your Aunt Mary and how she survived,
Yeah.
right? Or like how you're just like me, because you're never just like me,
Yeah.
right? I'm never, like, dealing with somebody else's grief, I'm never just like them. I don't care if they've lost a 20-year-old son in a motorcycle accident. I am not like them, and they are not like me. And when I approach it like I am like them, we share similar experiences that at some point in time we can discuss, but I am a completely different person. How I deal with trial, how I deal with grief is completely different. And entering into that is such
Yeah.
in a respectful way is, it's really important to people.
Yeah.
And that was important to us. The people that made the most difference in our lives were the ones who, they didn't remember us. It wasn't that they came up and saw us at the memorial. It's that they came by weeks later. There's one friend of ours who came by. He's the only one that came by, like, made a point to come by on Christmas. Like, we lost Justin in May. He showed up at our house on Christmas, and he had with a bottle of wine, just to say, "Hey, I'm thinking about you. Love you guys."
And that is because that's many months. That's 7 months or
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
between, and I find myself guilty of that. And maybe it's something that somebody listening to this, like, if you have a friend or family member who recently went through something really, really hard, like, everybody's around the week after.
Yeah.
Everybody's around the 2, 3, 4 weeks after if it's really, really tragic. But there's not a lot of people, like, that person will continue to go through those things
Yeah.
every day for the rest of their lives. And so I remember one of my friends lost his mom, and I asked him, like, "Hey, man, how not to say any names," but I was like, "Hey, it's months down the road," and I'm like, "This is actually awkward. How are you doing, with your mom passing away there, like, last year, and, like, are you still okay?" How, and just, I didn't even know how I worded it. It was because it was so awkward, because
Yeah.
it felt like, "Hey, you're over this, man."
Yeah, no.
Like, I feel like I'm bringing this up and just to, like, make you sad or something
Yeah.
like that. And he said, he's like, "You know what? Nobody's actually asked me that
Yeah.
since the
Yep.
funeral.
Yeah.
Like, it was like everybody just got over it, and everybody has to move on.
Yeah.
Like, for sure. But it's worthwhile asking, right?
Yeah, but you never.
Like that Christmas since May.
Yeah, you're
that
never
was-
really over. You guys, I mean, Koroy and Tui, you can talk to this too. It's like you're never really over losing somebody. I think Fiji has an amazing capacity
Yeah,
for resilience in the face of loss, and it's stunning, But I know, for me, I'm still not over losing Justin.
Yeah.
Right. I still, when I look, and Facebook doesn't make it any easier, because I look at all of his friends who've married, they have babies, there's
Goodness
people
sakes.
with grandchildren that we don't have, the lives move on, and people mature, and the things that we dreamed about don't happen. And we're never fully over losing our son. And it would be the same for anybody who's lost a child. Or even like a mom or dad, or, when somebody loses a parent and that parent is not there for the birth of their child, or, you name it.
Yeah.
It's like nobody's ever, we all learn to deal with it, but none of us are ever completely over something. I know, and that ability to actually ask people, and especially when we're still in that raw phase, it's like, man, it's Christmas. I should really ask how they're doing with this.
Yeah.
Tina's awesome at it. Like, she has a really good ability for it. I
Yeah.
am not as good as she is.
I'm terrible at that. That
and-
comes from my lack of empathy
Yeah.
side. Though.
I'm super blessed that Ryan is empathetic. Ryan
Right.
has an ability that I don't have. He's like his mom in some ways, and I'm really respectful of that. I'm thankful for that, and it's to his benefit.
Yeah, that's really neat. Sorry, guys, sorry about the bugs.
Oh, it's
It's
okay.
like
It's
it's about, what time is it? I don't know. It's the evening here, and we're sitting in front of all these lights.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's the bugs are really coming for us here. So sorry for like you hear slapping sounds, and that's because we're getting inundated by small little moths.
Yeah.
One of the things that I often am afraid of, for whatever reason, there was a pastor named Louis Giglio.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
if he went through a bunch of controversy at
I
some
don't
point.
remember.
It seems to
I'm the
happen
last
to many
one
of
you're
the,
going to ask about, like this pastor, that pastor.
yeah. He preached a sermon, and he's just like, you will go through tough times.
Yeah.
They will come. Like the Bible promises that tough times are coming. And so that's about I can't name the verse. I just remember that part of the sermon. And for whatever reason, I guess God's allowed that to stick in my head, which is really awesome. But because I'm just like, man, my kids are healthy.
Right.
I live in a house with a roof over my head and I have food every day.
Yeah.
And it's like, so at what point does the tough thing happen? And what is that tough thing going to be? And I'll never be able to answer these questions, but I'm like, it feels like, when I look at you guys, or I look at, some of the people that we used to do ministry with, where I used to live in Africa, I'm like, man, I got it good.
Yeah.
And tough times are coming.
Yeah.
And it makes me scared, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
Do I have
really?
the
Like, there's so many. Yeah. Do I have the strength? Like, you're talking about like another 8 years with my son, and then he passes away, like in a similar situation as Justin.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready for something like that, and I don't know. Maybe you're never ready for something like that.
Yeah. No.
I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
I'm just.
No, it's super. It's super heavy.
Yeah.
And
no, we're not trying to be. I'm not trying to be heavy just for the sake of being
No.
heavy. Just to be clear.
No,
Yeah,
it's
something I think about.
It's worth thinking about sometimes, but but that's why we are so like motivated about sharing relational discipleship with people, because it isn't about. I mean, the end goal is that people would grow in Christ, but in those relationships, we walk with one another through the really hard things, and I don't want to minimize, what the people that walked with us did, because they were there with us through all of this. And it's that deep relational connection, not a surfacey relational connection, but a deep relational connection that made the difference for us. That they sat at the table and they asked us good questions and they listened as we worked through the hard parts of talking out our grief. And, and that's what church life is about. Us walking together and supporting one another and living together in community in really deep, meaningful ways. And that's a big part of what we do.
And that's something that's really missing in the church in Fiji. I know we said, in the intros to this, we talk about church. And I mean, I'm not interested in like throwing church under the bus, because actually, although there are a lot of flaws with the church in Fiji, there's a ton of flaws with Western type church, or
Absolutely.
Western church as well. But I think one of the things that I would love to see more of in Fiji is that it's not the pastor's job to do the discipleship.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not Talatala or the Wakatawa
Right.
who has to go and do the visitation.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you can go and sit down and have an intentional conversation.
Yeah.
Like, just because you went to Bible school doesn't mean he's the only one that's authorized to come to have a bright idea. Because for those of you who have preached before, you will know that a lot of things are like, well, I've never realized that before.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down. I'm going to tell everybody about it.
Yeah.
And you're a local idiot.
Yeah.
Like,
if you think about if you go back to the Old Testament and you look at Moses, right? And Moses had two things that really showed us about like pastoral leadership. And one of them is Jethro telling him that you need help, right? He sees
his father-in-law.
Yeah, he sees remember he's trying. Moses is trying to settle all the disputes that are happening with the right?
Yeah.
And he's like, you can't do this alone. You need help.
Need help.
And then the other thing is, as Jesus is standing over that battle, right, and he has Aaron and Hur next to him, and whenever Moses' arms go down,
They start losing.
the battle changes. But whenever those guys hold his arms up, they start winning again,
Yeah.
right? And so it's an image that God gives us of how we're supposed to be as pastors. Like, we can't do this alone. We need to do the job of identifying people.
That's
to
such a
help
good
us,
analogy. Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
and bringing them into relationship and actually equipping them and getting help. There was a pastor I knew in Nandi that, when we first met him, he was trying to do everything. He'd been dropped into this church and he was struggling, and he's been doing everything to make ground and get going. And then we talked to him about those two stories, and he started investing in people around him and giving them authority and giving them responsibility, and it changed his church. You know, and all of a sudden
In Fiji.
Wow. And you know, and it was really cool to see, you know, and so, you know, as pastors, we have to do that same thing, and it falls back on the people too, of like that expectation that everything is on the pastor, and it's like, no, step up, and you own a part of this.
Yeah.
You are when we say, you know, it's like, you're a disciple of Jesus. If you're following Jesus, if you're changed by Jesus, if you're on mission for Jesus, you're a disciple of Jesus. And yeah, people want to load it with like this apostolic stuff and all these other, you know, load the word with other things. But it's, you know, you're what is a disciple? A disciple is someone who is under a teacher, right? And if our teacher is Jesus, and so we are disciples of the teacher.
Yeah.
And he's our Lord and Master, and we are followers of him, and so we're his disciples, and we exist to go into the world and make disciples. And in that process, you know, the church should be full of maturing disciples of Jesus, and that should look like a whole bunch of people who are doing things,
Yeah.
and not a pastor who's trying to do everything.
Yeah.
And so when we walked into like the church here, and we saw, you know, that there's a highly evangelistic culture, that it leans heavily into this, you know, the systems that existed prior of, or, you know, Fijian organizational leadership, and realizing that, you know, of course it's going to be like that, because that's what everybody knows. And in reminding people that when we become followers of Jesus, our culture changes. We become Christian disciples of Jesus. We become Christians. And the culture of Christ is different than the culture of the United States, the culture of Mexico, the culture of Fiji.
Yes.
You know, we take on a new nationality in Jesus.
I say that all the time.
Yeah.
Like when, you know, in the village meetings or whatever it is, like, you know, we have ways that we did things in the past, ways that our grandmothers, but we have a new culture.
And there's things that are really good.
And there's things that we get to keep.
Yeah.
But there are things that, like, Christianity is inclusive, but is just as much exclusive as it is inclusive.
Yeah.
Like, there are things that we don't get to do anymore,
Right.
because it doesn't assist other people in growing in their walk towards
Right.
Jesus or us. And, like, it's not because of, like, the law is dead, just so everybody's clear. Like that's what Jesus came to do, was to do away with it so that we could move from religion to relationship.
Yep.
And I feel like that is, because of the top-down structure that Fiji has, the difficult part of establishing disciple-making churches, disciple-making people, is that you are the pastor.
Yeah.
You are the disciple maker. You're the disciple maker. You're the disciple maker. Like, knowledge is great.
Right.
And knowing what's right and wrong is good for human flourishing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the law was, you know, in
Right.
the Old Testament, and that's not to be put away.
Yeah.
But when it comes to just following a set of rules, like, nobody's interested.
Right.
Nobody wants to
I
do
think
that.
it's one of the cool ironies of timing that, you know, we chose at Grace Bible Church to go through John, right?
Yeah.
And that we hit on John 13 before we have this discussion, right?
Yeah.
Through no working of our own.
That's so
and
true.
and I've
Yeah.
been camping out on it for this past week because I'm lazy and I don't really, or something.
Yeah.
But we've been camping out on it, and that we talk about like servant leadership, you know, and when we see Jesus wash the disciples' feet, and he's the example, and, you know, and he says, no, you know, the teacher or the student's not better than the teacher, you know, the messenger's not better than the one who sends them. You know, he's showing them, you've said that I'm Lord and you're right, and here's what I'm going to do, right? I am going to take on the role, that what we talked about, that role of the Gentile servant,
Yeah.
right? The one who, like the Jews, they wouldn't touch another person's feet because it would defile them. Here's a Gentile coming in, and Jesus taking on that role and washing the other disciples' feet and saying,
Including Judas.
do as I do, right?
Yeah.
Do as
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
So humble yourself to the point of vile servanthood and do what I'm doing.
Yeah, and it's not humble yourself to the point of vile servanthood. Go.
Right.
It's like what do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That is like the key part. Of
Humble
like,
yourself.
Yeah, and the coolest analogy of that is that I've heard in recent times, that's not in the Bible. It's like, hey, there's a bunch of religions, and we all put God at the top of the mountain. And like the difference between like Christianity and other religions is that like our God actually comes down the mountain and holds our hand and like walks us up.
Yeah.
And as a sign of who he is, and as a humble God.
Yeah, he's
I
so
guess.
powerful
Yeah.
that he can be humble.
Yeah. So, anyways,
Yeah, that was really cool.
am I?
No.
Okay.
I
you
don't
got
even remember
questions?
where we were.
You got any questions? I'm okay, but just so you guys know, like we're okay to go long. I don't care about it. We'll just end it when it ends. So, sorry guys, this is less of like a live conversation as it is just like two friends hanging out, chatting.
Okay, it's a question from Sisa.
Question from Sisa. Oh, Sisa. Same Sisa?
Sisa
From Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Sisa, man. Appreciate it.
What's the question? What's the question? Oh, sure. What's it like ministering to Fijians?
Awesome. Awesome. I think as a whole, I think when you like you have, so you have obviously speaking about Fijians as the whole country, you have two significant groups, right, and so each of them are different, and
That's actually so key because when you say Fijians, you think just Itaukei.
Yeah.
But
it's like we exist in the whole country.
Yes.
And
our church is a perfect example.
Yeah, and like Grace is a multicultural church which seeks to share Jesus with a wide variety of people, and so we have to think like multiculturally. And the Indian culture is awesome in its way, and the Fijian culture is awesome. And I would say, like one of the hardest parts is when you come from a transparent society or a society that values transparency into societies that don't have a lot of high trust. It's a very challenging process to get people to engage.
Now you're cutting deep, yeah.
In the word, right? And when you share a story and we start to talk about what does this mean to you, right? And it's just like you got to. One of the things that we really value is like embracing silence, right? And allowing silence to be.
Awkward silence.
And
is
okay. Nobody can engage in silence like people in Fiji. Like it's professional level. Like you're not gonna. You can sit there and just everyone's gonna be
level silence.
Like this forever.
Yeah.
And it's like that's where things get uncomfortable.
It's so true. I've never thought about that before.
Like how talented at silence like Fijian culture can be. But it's also really deep and rich, and like when you consider like the Itaukei side, like the majority of people have engaged in some sort of Christian Christianity. And so that's like you'll walk into a situation and it's like, these people know the word, right? They know it better than I do. I have terrible memorization skills, but like, your grandmother, she knows the word, you know? The hard part is like getting people to take it from their head to their heart into their hands, and there's a lot of people.
Even Kroy knows more. Like he can pull up,
memorize,
like,
it's crazy.
It's not just like people get to sit around reading their Bible all day. It's like guys who work hard, like every day.
Yeah, it's like memorized.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I'm
you're right.
terrible. I'm embarrassed. My own ability with
Pastor
memorization.
Dave.
Yeah. Well, he's got to know, and it's like I'm paraphrasing constantly.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm not making stuff up, it's usually a win.
Yeah.
But you're just always entering into these things, and it's like society-wise, this is a wonderfully pretty happy society.
Yeah.
Not
a lot of discontent.
No.
What do you want? Like, and I think a lot of discontent is actually the root cause of a lot of discontent in Western culture is the setting of goals.
Yeah.
And the I need to be at a certain place by this time in life, or actually in the day.
Yeah.
And so a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety comes from that. As good as goal setting is, as we were talking about, like, hey, tomorrow's another day.
When we first went back to the U.S. after COVID, and we stayed in a hotel room, and turn on the television, and it's like, you deserve this. You need to have this. You deserve credit. You know, your credit's messed up. You need this and that, all these other things. And that's not how it is here, right?
No.
It's like nobody, I don't have that sense of like, I deserve.
No.
You know, it's like, I am where I am. You know, and sometimes, you know, in certain parts of this, of the culture here, it's like, it breeds a lack of motivation, you know, or sometimes you accept things to the point of your own detriment.
Yes, 100%. Yeah,
Does that
because
make
you're
sense?
you're just willing.
I
to
just
let,
am who I am.
Yeah,
and that's all that I'll ever be.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, Jesus has made you a conqueror, and he's all these other things, you know, and so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I love serving here. I love being a part of things. It's fantastic.
And there is just as many difficulties doing ministry.
Oh,
it doesn't matter where you are. There's always going to be difficulties.
Yeah.
And there's beautiful things that you can learn from every culture. It's kind of a, yeah.
Yeah, I think as Westerners, wildly pampered, you know, and
the Western church is wildly awesome too.
Yeah.
Like there's amazing things that happen.
Yeah.
But next question. While you present that question, I'm gonna go and take a hard pee. I'll be right back. But we can just hang out.
Yeah.
You guys can just.
Do you listen to? Oh, there's another question from Caesar. Do you listen to Pearl Jam?
Do I listen to Pearl Jam? Yes, I actually went and saw them in concert in '96.
Wow.
Yeah, and I saw them at the Blaisdell Arena, or not Blaisdell. I saw them at University of Hawaii. There's an outdoor arena that they have, and I saw them on the 10 tour, and so yeah, I love
10th.
on 10 the album 10, it was their first album. Yeah, it's actually somehow or another I got like a bootleg copy of the concert. It's really cool.
Oh, you do.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
do. Okay.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of different things. I would not fit the mold of someone who just listens to, you know, a lot of
Yeah.
Which goes back to why when John was talking about what was the keyboard that he.
Oh, that what the keyboard did your grandmother?
Oh, the Omnichord.
The Omnichord, yeah, and knowing that it's on a Gorillaz song.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, Clint Eastwood.
shoot, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All he ever did, it's like you can find the video on YouTube about it. And yeah, exactly. And all he does is like, yeah. And even the drum break, it's like, you know, whatever it is, it's on that.
Okay.
It's really
if
cool.
there was no copyright
They
laws,
made the song just from that.
Yes. Yeah.
It's funny. It's like a sample, right?
Yeah. That's all it is.
That's what all that was built in.
Yeah, I think Mitch Albon it was from the Gorillaz and also Blur. Like I know way too much stuff like this, useless information.
I'm like,
Yeah, so it goes like that.
Yeah, because it was like I forget. I was watching like a little mini documentary about this guy from Blur and Gorillaz and he was just he was going through. He has like this apartment and he has all of these different instruments and he's going through the whole thing. And he breaks out his Omnichord and he's like, check this out. You know, and the guy who's with him is like, get out of here. It was awesome. Yeah, it's really cool.
this is all like,
verbatim.
Preface this with like one of the first, I think, Bible studies we ever did together. I think I brought up like a Drake quote probably from Emotionless, which is, I think, his best song. And I was like, there's this artist, like, you guys probably don't listen to him, called Drake. And I was kind of like pointing at the rest of the group. I'm like, Tia, you probably know one of the girls in our group who's around my age. And I just remember like seeing Dave's face. She's like, you don't think I know who Drake is, bro?
I mean, he's not on a playlist that I have, but
but
I mean, if you want to talk Beastie Boys or you want to talk about some other stuff, then yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right.
He's
eat my words.
Yeah. I have a very, very varied playlist, so yeah.
Next question, but also Cisa, why asking about Pearl Jam? It's like very specific. I love the question.
I know.
I think it's a great question. Just like, what Pearl Jam?
Yeah, do you listen to Pearl Jam,
Creed, a little bit of Of course, my son was in high school when Creed was out.
Oh.
So then the tell him that if he likes them, then he should look at doggone it. It is Alter Bridge. And the song Coeur d'Alene, which is about my hometown.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. The guy the lead guitarist for Alter Bridge, lead singer for Alter Bridge, is from Spokane, Washington, which is right next to Coeur d'Alene, and he sings about the lake that our hometown was on,
Lake
Coeur d'Alene.
Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah, it's really cool.
There you go. Next
I
question.
listen to it. I have another playlist that's the playlist of songs I listen to when we take off from Mombasa.
Really?
And we're going home. Yeah, I
No
got,
way.
it drives Tina nuts because I put my headphones on and I ignore her for 11 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
He knows.
Oh, he knows the song.
Oh,
He
good.
knows
Okay.
it. He knows the song.
Okay, you got you.
That's awesome.
Normally says Gorillaz does omni-chord songs and Nickelback does 3-chord songs.
Oh, that's funny. Funny. Omni 3. Okay. Thank you,
Let's see
Norm.
what you got there.
Norm.
That was a good Canadian reference too, going with Nickelback. I like that. That's good for John.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah. Shout out Norm. Shout out to all the Canadians. Yeah. Red, white, and white. Next. Or do you got it next?
Did you guys have a chance to try out the Coke Espresso?
The Coke.
No, I have not.
We have not.
I was thinking about it today, actually, which is really funny. Today? Yeah, this morning. I just don't have any Coke in the house.
Yeah, that's.
But I do want to try it. I just need to try it at the time. Like, I should have tried it before this, like, podcast. Is when I should have had a Coke Espresso. But then I probably would have been like,
like
an
me,
auctioneer
normally. Yeah.
coming on there.
And Tina and I run pretty minimal on the Coke in our house. We kind of made a
never have it,
commitment to. Well, we just see, like, I'm 59, Tina's late 50s, and we are just kind of in that fragile place of like, we need to start taking care of ourselves,
Right.
and watching.
Physically, you mean?
Yeah, and watching, honestly, what I feel like the epidemic proportions of diabetes in this country.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't know if I'll affect your Coca-Cola sponsorship, but I don't think it's very good for people at all. So,
Shoot,
sorry.
there we go. Oh, man.
Man,
Now we lose
Smack and Coke is not good for you.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Say goodbye to Coke
There
sponsor.
we go.
Okay, one of the questions we had before, and I want to be diligent to answer these questions, that you can go and ask us on Instagram or Facebook ahead of time. We usually post that we're going to be doing live, and we want interaction from you guys, because like, if there's something you want to talk about that's a bit, deep, or there's some research we can do, we try to do that. And so one of the questions from Rex was, what do you think about the mocking of the Last Supper on the Paris
That's
Olympics?
a good one.
We just talked about this in Bible study, and how I don't talk about this
Yeah. Yeah.
in our social media, but
Yeah.
I will say that
Here's the thing.
Okay, you
do you
start.
think it surprised God?
no.
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 Do you think God's bigger than some yahoos that would do something like that? I do.
For sure.
And I think
sure.
that, I think there's a lot of nuance to this, and specifically, I think that we can expect that. I think we're going to see a lot more of that.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be, God says that the end times are not going to be pretty, and that we need to be prepared. And at the same time, we need to be exemplifying Jesus Christ in our lives towards people who don't know him. And if you talk about Jesus saying we need to get hit in the face 7 times or 7 times 7, right? Right? Then stand by.
Yeah.
You're going to take a lot of smacks to the head, and this isn't even.
I guess one of the things
punch.
that I hear from people who are deciding to be voices of the situation is that, like, Muslims won't let this happen.
Yeah,
like, you
right.
gotta try to do this to Jews.
Yeah.
See, like, see if they take a back seat.
But
to
we
it.
don't
like
follow-
the only
yeah.
religion
Yep.
or that people can actively make fun of is Christianity without having any repercussions.
But we don't
What do you
follow.
say?
We don't follow Allah. We don't follow a bunch of other gods. We follow Jesus. And Jesus' model is to take one for the team. And he bore the cross for our sin. So we can look at those kind of things and remember. And those people don't know Jesus.
Yeah.
And the best example.
That's such a good example. I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest one for me.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't move to California because I want low taxes.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like non-Christians get a non-Christian.
I'm not going to endorse their behavior.
No.
We talk about, it's like, I wouldn't expect I wouldn't expect you to let your sons put their hands on a hot stove, right? And there's things we've been told not to do. And we should try to help people understand that certain things are going to hurt them, right? Because we tell them this because we love them, and they're going to do it anyway.
Oh yeah, if you have boys.
Yeah, they're going
to. I mean, it's like as a father of boys, it's like, oh yeah.
Sometimes the risk is telling them, "Hey, don't do that because this is going to happen," right? Right.
Don't press the big red button.
Exactly.
It's going to blow up. It's going to blow something up. They're like,
well, I've got to.
yeah.
That's right.
So I will read this as a kind of alternate thing to think about, and I'm not saying this is true or not true. Okay, so this is what one of my friends on Facebook read. All right. Dear gentle reader, I'm about to step on some toes in regard to the opening ceremony at the Paris Olympics. The headless woman was Marie Antoinette. She ruled over France and was found guilty of treason, conspiracy, and stealing from the country. Sound familiar? Also, it was not the Last Supper. It was a depiction of an ancient Greek bacchanal. Because, the Olympics are ancient and Greek. Surprise! And if you didn't know, a bacchanalia is an uncontrollably promiscuous, extravagant, and loud party. The parties often spanned several days, which honored the god of wine, Bacchus, the blue guy covered in the grapevine.
Yeah.
He is also known as Dionysus, the Greek god of fertility, later known as the god of wine and pleasure. And finally, it was not death on a pale horse. It was Sequana, goddess of the Seine, the river in which the boat procession took place. As you guys saw, like the athletes floating down the boats for the opening ceremonies, that is the river Seine. Yeah. She was meant to be the representation of the Olympic spirit and of Sequana. If some of you weren't so busy trying to end the Department of Education, you might know this. Loosen the clutch on your pearls. Yours truly, Lady Francis. All right. So that is a hot take. Sorry, we got bugs on the mic. If you guys hear screeching, that is. I always found that I was like, okay, I'm gonna not say much about this because maybe. Yeah. I'm just like, hey, my kids are watching the opening ceremony. Let's not try to recreate an uncontrollably promiscuous, extravagant, and loud party in the opening ceremonies.
Yeah.
I don't want. We were watching the opening ceremonies actually.
Okay.
And Corey was there, and I was like, okay, shut it off. And so we shut it off because I'm like, I don't need my kids seeing this crap. No. Like I don't know what it is. Yeah. Like if it's some recreation of like some sort of perverted recreation of the Last Supper or not. I'm like, as a kid, when you're seeing these things, like, what are you processing? Like, I'm trying to see it through the eyes of my 5-year-old, my 8-year-old. I'm like, this is just going to confuse them at best. Yeah. Like, this is the Olympics, and Dad, you've been talking about the Olympics, and like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Like,
there's a guy by the name of Mike Cosper on Twitter, and he responded to this and brought up some points about it that it's like, yeah, that's not true. Right.
This explanation.
Yeah, that it was actually like termed and pointed to the whole. I think there's a part of that. Okay. I think that there is the bacchanalia part of it that exists in it because of the guy in blue in front and some other things. But I think it's also disingenuous to say that no, it wasn't about that at all. When truth, when there's Mike wrote what he wrote about it like points to the direct understanding that this is actually like what it was about.
Yeah, okay.
And that it incorporated all of those other things, yes. But that doesn't matter. Yeah. Right? It's like the big thing is like for yourself, it's like if you see you how do you counsel your children through seeing something like this? It's like, man, look at what a mess the world is, right? Right. And then when you kind of come to understand what it was about, it's like it gives you an opportunity to talk your kids through it. And we're walking through some things like this world's really broken, and we need to do a good job with our kids in helping them understand that balance of love and truth and all these other things. Yeah. And man, I grieve for you and your family, because as your kids grow up in this world, and I look at Fiji as a whole. When we first started coming here, people had to go to the internet. To get on the internet, they had to go to internet cafes, right? And now you have kids walking around watching Cocomelon on devices that have more computing power than what the U.S. used to put people on the moon,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they're being exposed to
Cocomelon, man, like anything on YouTube. Like,
Anything.
here's a YouTube app, and I'm going to go away as a parent now for 3 hours and bring the phone to me when the battery
And so
dies.
Uncle so-and-so may have looked at your phone and looked at something that wasn't appropriate. And now your kids are picking up the phone and they're going wandering around. And pretty soon the algorithm is going to flash them something that maybe kids shouldn't be seeing.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, we exist in a culture that everybody's saying, well, it's just okay. You do what you want to do, man. You know, everything's all right. You what's good for you is good for you. What's good for me is good for me. And I don't think that that's the case.
Yeah.
But that's me.
And I think we have to be careful with kids as well. Like, not to beat this thing to death, but like, kids are not like rocks on the bottom of a river that the river just washes over, and you pull the rock out and it dries out. Like, they're like a sponge. Like, they are actually, like, Leaky's 8. I can see him looking at things, and it's easy for me to convince myself that, like, I turn off the TV, that's the end of his thought process. But it's not. I think we need to be careful as parents to, like, we need to be able to address these things, like, soon, and acknowledge that our kids are absorbing what they are seeing. And like, hey, let's have a conversation about that. Did you think anything of that? What did that make you think? How did that make you feel?
Yeah.
Was that weird for you? Asking these kind of questions, because I'm guilty of. I'm saying it because I'm guilty of it. Because I'm getting to the point now where I feel like, oh, he actually saw that was off a little bit. We should talk about that. Yeah. Anyways, that's our thoughts on the last supper.
On Bacchanalia.
Bacchanalia. Yeah. Bacchanalia. Any other questions?
Another one from Cisa.
Yeah. Thank you, Cisa, for chiming in.
One thing that Taltal found interesting or surprising about Fijians when you were in ministry.
What's one thing that I
You
found surprising? Interesting. Man, what they eat and how much they can eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's really interesting.
Which is crazy coming from American, because people always like have this like stereotype that Americans eat lots.
Oh yeah.
And they do.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, I don't know.
But man, a wedding or a funeral here, woo! Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say also, like, what was something that's really interesting? I think, like, commitment. Like, there's some hardcore commitment to follow, to do, you know, and to really suffer, you know, to go through hard things.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like pastors that just have nothing,
Right.
you know, and they're tough. They hang tough and you know, and they're just trying,
Yeah.
you know. I think they're resolute in their faith, and it's really inspirational.
Yeah, and it's so funny because then you get so many people who say about pastors who have nothing that, like, hey, how can you be a pastor that has nothing? I mean, that's prosperity gospel.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's worse.
Yeah.
Is that, like, you can't be, you know, a pastor and have nothing.
Right.
Like, what is God not blessing you? Like,
Yeah.
and that's obviously totally not true.
Right.
I think that's such a reflection of
Yeah.
the Fijian culture as a whole. Like that, like people are, you know, whether you're Indo-Fijian or Fijian, like resilience and the ability to, you know, be happy with very little.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wish that people could leave Denarau and the Coral Coast and come up here and see.
Sit here on a
On a bug-filled night and actually see do you actually really like Fiji?
Yeah.
Do you actually like it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you might not once you actually go to Fiji.
Yeah.
But you might actually fall in love
and
with it.
have them do it in March and April.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when we're actually here sweating, like I'm fine.
Yeah, we're in
tonight, man.
great shape
I'm like,
tonight. We're doing awesome.
Dude, bugs, bring it on, man. This
Yeah.
is nothing. All right, Thank you guys. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? We'll do this again one day. I wanted to make this more regular. Me and Dave have been I've been talking about doing this with Dave for a while, and I think we can do this again really, really soon.
Let me pray for us.
Yes.
Lord, thank you for tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to just share what you've done in my life, and Lord, what some of the things that we're hoping will come to fruition here in Fiji through how you've worked and what you're doing. And so, Lord, I'm super thankful for John and Tui and Karoy and Stephanie and just everybody that's a part of this family. Lord, they've been a huge blessing to us, and I pray that you would cover them and continue to use this as a tool to reach others in your name. Lord, we just give you thanks for everyone in our church and for the Church of Fiji. Lord, I pray that you would bring just a deep desire for discipleship, for people to grow in your name and to follow you and be changed by you in this country. And that you would just change things at a hardcore roots level. And Lord, we would just be able to see that roll out, and that this country, I know one of my friends has said that the ripples would come outwards from Fiji, and that this place would be a place that makes a difference in the rest of the world. We love you, Jesus, and we just pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. All right, guys, thank you for joining. If you want a good cup of coffee and you're on your way from Lambasa to Nambualu or Sabsavu, make sure you stop in at Fresh Tea and Coffee. You guys hang out with the staff there every once in a while, and I'm sure the girls will be a blessing to you. If you guys need videos for a business or an NGO, check us out at wakafarms.com/media. It's obviously what we're good at. I mean, that's the thing that we do the most. And hold up on the apparel, because wait a minute. Something not right, because we're working on a new drop with a local company who's going to the clothes are going to be on another level, like the quality and the durability and the wear, the fit. It's going to be next level. So hold up on the apparel. We're working on some new stuff with an exciting new company, and we're going to talk about that as soon as things are finalized. Thank you guys for joining. We'll be back here on Monday at 4:30. This is my friend Dave, and you guys will see him back here again. This was On the Mat. My name is Jonathan. Thank you guys for hanging out for the podcast, and we will see you guys next week.
Peace.